Oh, my God. Is that what zoning is? It is.
Yes.
It is a zoning and subdivision ordinance because it's not zoning, but
Changed from the last version.
I don't know, but if you need to go, Bonnie has this window. Just show him which paragraph changes.
We'll see.
What did they used to be? So we are discussing today. That is. Kind of wish I had this meeting. Scott was up there. He's a doctor over.
Yeah.
I'm friends with principal. I speak for both. Yeah. Is what they were discussing earlier. Like, oh, they said it was 2 grams. It was like.
Black hair, curly hair. That's.
Good afternoon, everyone. So just bear with us for a moment.
I remember the sauce one.
What we've asked people, we put enough chairs in here to fill this place safely. So if you don't have a chair, if you'll wait, and you have signed up, if you can wait. Where Amanda has the other people.
What's yours? Yes. Yes.
Okay. Okay.
I hope you. I have. Okay. I don't know.
The sauce ones that you.
Oh, okay. I can do that. I thought you meant like that. That sounds like that's.
Oh, I used to know.
I can see.
I'm very.
I expected it.
One time.
I'm not reading.
I used to know the Grays. Mrs. Gray
Good evening,
lived on
everyone.
Allen Street.
I would like to call this meeting of the Sylva Board of Commissioners to order. And I would like to say that we will accommodate everyone. It will just take us some time to shift people out. But for now, let us get started with the approval of our agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda? So moved. Thank you. We have a motion. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of approving our agenda signify by saying aye and raising your hand. People can't see your mouth. Aye. Thank you. It's approved. And out of deference to our presenters, I would like to move the public hearings to occur now, and then we'll finish the rest of our regular business. So the first public hearing is on our zoning ordinance and map and land use code. And I would ask that everybody check their phones, please, and make sure that they are.
Well, I had to call into the IRS, I'm sorry. That's the truth.
We will begin our public hearing. Everyone that is signed up to speak, I want to let you know you have 3 minutes to speak. So I will start with the front of the list, and that's Roger Stevens. Oh, excuse me. Let's listen to the what we've changed in our ordinances.
Okay. Are you ready for me?
Yes.
Yes, Kevin.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Mayor and Commissioners. I just wanted to go over some of the presentation for the people in the audience who may have been learning about this for the first time. My name is Karen Mallow. I'm with Withers Ravenel. We are a multidisciplinary firm located in Raleigh, but we have 9 offices throughout throughout North Carolina. Hold on, let me try to advance my screen. There we go. You'll see from the picture, Brendy Vega, she is our Director of Planning. And then the project team that's been working on this is myself and Daniel Rao, who is also on the call as well. We would like to take a special minute just to thank the mayor, the commissioners, the planning board, and the town staff for their expertise and guidance throughout this project and through our patience as we work through multiple revisions and meetings to get this to the point where we are today. An overview of our presentation today. We're going to discuss the planning and zoning, what it is, go over the project history and the requirements of 160D, talk about the land use plan and the future land use map, and then the zoning and subdivision ordinance that we have presented, and then discuss about that zoning and ordinance, zoning and subdivision ordinance. We're going to discuss each of the articles and talk about big picture changes. We're going to talk about the zoning map, what's new, and then consistency with the land use plan and steps moving forward. So the first thing is planning and zoning. What is it and why do we do it? Planning is a responsibility of local governments to prepare for and control growth and development within town limits. It is also for the protection of the health, safety, and welfare of its citizens. Towns and county, a town and a county work together to determine best areas for growth based on the location of utilities, the suitability of the land, the road network, and the proximity of housing. Zoning provides protection of neighborhoods against nuisances such as noise, light, odor. Zoning also creates areas appropriate for the different types of development that we see in a town, such as residential, which is our houses and our homes, commercial, which is our stores, restaurants, and offices, and industrial uses, which is our manufacturing and where we have our jobs. Land use plan creates a guiding document and it contains goals and action items. And then our zoning ordinance is the tool that implements the goals from the land use plan. So a little bit of the project history. The town had completed a ordinance assessment in the spring of 2019. This document provided an ordinance organizational outline. It suggested some methods for converting your current ordinance regulations to a new structure. And it listed findings and specific recommendations. Then Withers Ravenel, which is our company, was hired in 2020 to update and consolidate the zoning and subdivisions ordinances. And we did as outlined in that assessment. There were some additional changes as we went through this process. As you can see, this process has been going on for about a year and a half. And those additional changes were identified by staff and town boards at planning board meetings and at staff meetings. So you heard me mention 160D. This is a North Carolina legislation that was passed that requires all towns to be in conformance with the requirements of this chapter by updating zoning ordinances by July 1, 2021. So we are well within the process when that deadline came and went. So this is why we're bringing this up now and we're needing to get this approved. Some of the things that were required by 160D, there was conflicts of interest, oath of office, regulations for our boards. There was conditional uses, which was a type of approval. We changed those to special use permits. Conditional zoning is now permitted, and I'll explain that a little bit detail later. Minor administrative modifications for development approvals, permit choice and vested rights, and updates to minimum housing. So a lot of this is just technical jargon that you won't even see as in your daily interactions with the zoning ordinance, but this is mostly for staff. And then another component of 160D, which is important, is that all towns, in order to have zoning, must have a land use or comprehensive plan by July of 2022. So lucky that the town of Sylva was already thinking ahead and has a plan called the 2040 Land Use Plan. So this plan was prepared in May of 2020 by Friction Shift Projects and Turner Consulting. So this was not prepared by us, but we're presenting it to you tonight so you can understand that the zoning is a tool in which we're going to implement this plan. So the land use vision statement of this plan says, Sylva in 2040 is a vibrant town with a built environment that complements the natural beauty of the surrounding mountains and streams. Residents and visitors are connected to high quality housing, employment, shopping, and entertainment opportunities through a network of safe multimodal transportation corridors. So how this land use plan is going to be used. The plan for Sylva will be used as a guide for making land use decisions, preparing and implementing ordinances, and influencing the rate and location of future growth. It outlines the vision of the community for addressing future land use. All land use decisions that are brought to the town of Sylva will be guided by the vision, the guiding principles, goals, and policies in this plan. The plan outlines the vision of how Sylva will evolve and change over the next 20 years. And the overall goal of the plan is to outline a roadmap that will maintain Sylva as a healthy, sustainable, and desirable place to live. So the plan contains the following, this was the following makeup of the plan. So the plan has a community context, which is basically your demographic data. It shows how Sylva has been growing over the last 50 years and how it is projected to grow into 2040 and beyond. Talk about key drivers. These are the 4 items that really shaped how this plan came about. Reimagining your commercial corridors, providing diversity in your housing, multimodal mobility, and zoning code modernization. So if you're wondering what any of those mean, multimodal mobility means the ability to get from one place to another. And multimodal really talks about the different ways you can get there. Bus, train, walking, bicycle, those types of multimodal mobility. The plan also contains character areas and mapping. And some of the mapping we'll see just in a minute. The goals and policies that were outlined in the plan. And again, these will be important because you'll see later in the presentation, we link these goals and policies to some of the rules and regulations that are in the zoning ordinance. So this is how they are related. Goal 1, maintain downtown Sylva as a unique, historic, vibrant, and attractive local and regional destination. Goal 2, establish the NC 107 corridor as a model corridor in southwestern North Carolina. Goal 3, maintain a healthy balance in land uses between residential, generators, workforce nodes, and park and open space. And again, just to clarify, generators are areas where that generate traffic. So a generator might be where you work. It might be a shopping center. It might be a ball field during baseball season. Any type of place that creates more than your normal amount of trips is called a generator. Goal 4, future development in Sylva incorporates appropriate levels of density and design to support increased housing options, the viability of neighborhoods, commercial and overall long-term neighborhood sustainability. Goal 5, the physical character and identity of Sylva is maintained through a high degree of aesthetics and quality development. And Goal 6, new development and redevelopment projects incorporate creative design. So one of the major things of the plan to kind of like culminate is the future land use map and how we see those goals and objectives coming through and coming to the ground and where we see Sylva developing. Some of the colors on this map, the light olive colors are your residential development, and they're called infill neighborhoods. Orange is your orange is your rural residential. The aqua color is urban neighborhoods. Those are closest to our downtown area and along commercial corridors. The purple is the different commercial uses in the town. Red is your downtown. Beige is your medical area. The mint is the Skyland mixed use. And the dark olive colors are your parks and open spaces. Now moving on to, again, the zoning and subdivision ordinance. And this is what we are presenting this evening. And this is the tool that's going to take those goals and objectives and put it into reality. So again, this provides the rules and regulations to implement the goals of the land use plan. It provides guidance on what can go where, landscaping, parking, architectural standards, signs, open space, subdivisions, and utilities. It also discusses the processes and procedures for development applications and what guides your town boards and staff. These are the articles that are included in the ordinance. If you did not have a chance to look at it, it is posted on the town website. There are 10 articles. The Article 1 general is basically the legal language that is needed. It also discusses nonconformities. Article 2 is administration, and that discusses boards and staff rules and their roles in development. Article 3 talks about procedures of how development happens and what the application process looks like. Article 4 is the zoning districts and dimensional standards. That's how the town is broken up into the different districts, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. Article 5 discusses the different uses that are allowed in the town and what standards are going to guide the development of those uses. Article 6 talks about utilities, which is sewer and water, and talks about runoff and stormwater. It also talks about streets and everything related to a subdivision, sidewalks, lighting, etc., that kind of stuff. And then Article 7 is development standards. That's where we're going to see a bulk of the regulations that what it's going to look like. So that's in Article 7. Article 8 are sign standards. Article 9 are environmental regulations, talk about water preservation and slope preservation. And then Article 10 are definitions. And then Appendix A is a recommended native landscape species list. And then our zoning map. So big picture changes that are occurring in this ordinance that are not necessarily related to 160D, because 160D is related to the entire state. But we wanted to discuss some of the big picture items that are specific to Sylva and how it's going to affect the town. So the zoning ordinance was reorganized, consolidated, and renamed. And from not only from a zoning perspective, not only from an entire perspective, we took the zoning ordinance and the subdivision and combined them, but we also reorganized, consolidated, and renamed zoning districts within the town. So how it happened, or how it was in the beginning, was that anything that was in one district, your lowest intensity district, was then allowed in your more intense district. And then all of the things that were evolved in 1 and 2 were then allowed in 3. So we removed that and created separate zoning districts, which have their own specific set of uses. We also then removed the uses and the dimensional standards from each of those districts, and we created articles specific to those uses. As you saw, that was going to be Article 5, and the dimensional standards are in Article 4. We also created summary tables, and this was one of the specific goals that was in the ordinance assessment. We wanted to create tables that make it easier to use, and again, a user-friendly document. So we had the procedures are outlined in Article 3. The dimensional standards table is in Article 4. The use table is in Article 5. And there is also a parking table in Chapter 7, and then signs in Article 8. Other big picture items, we updated development standards to include subdivisions where we require open space, landscaping, buffering, and sidewalks. Increased the design standards that were normally for just downtown. We expanded those throughout the community. Also, they required the use of native species in landscaping to meet the ordinance requirements. And then the creation of a commercial corridor overlay to promote shared driveways, pedestrian access, safety, and design elements along Route 107. Okay, so we're going to move on to zoning real quick, and we're going to show you where the zoning map and how this will, how this changed. So here is the zoning map as it is proposed. It's hard to see because it's so small. Again, that is viewable on the town website. Basically what we did is, and again, this was in coordination with the planning board and with staff, and following the recommendations of the ordinance assessment. We basically just created new zoning districts based on what's there. We didn't change any lines. There was no intent to change anybody's designation. We just changed the names. So R1 and R1A are combined to create the low density residential district. The current R1B and R2 residential districts were combined to create the medium density residential district. The current R3 converts to the high density residential district. B1 Main Street Business District is now the DTB, which is your downtown business district. B2 becomes your general business. That's going to be shown in red. If anyone wanted to know what the colors were, I can go back and discuss colors. But general business is the B2. B3 now becomes your commercial corridor overlay. So basically, it's a general business with an overlay district on top of it. Your government and institutional district just became institutional. Professional business district stayed exactly the same. The industrial district just changed the letters from I1 to IND. Hillside and steep slope development overlay remains the same. There was a small area of the town zoned RPUD that is going to high density residential, but any development that did happen in the PUD that does have specific conditions attached to the PUD those switch to what is called a conditional district. And then again, the MPUD, anything that was in that mixed use PUD overlay also becomes a conditional district if it was developed. So what's new? So for the Board of Commissioners, and some of the items that have changed since our January draft when we presented to the Planning Board, these were sent to you in a memo with the new draft. But we just wanted to go over them in case there was some question or concern. So there was the removal. We had discussed this, that based on the scarcity of space and because of the new 107 right-of-way expansion, there was a decision to remove the open space requirement for the commercial properties in the commercial corridor overlay district. We removed the limit on the number of accessory structures and we're going to base those limits instead of on the number, basing it on the square footage of the existing principal structure. There were updates to the chicken keeping that you may have seen. We removed all the references to permits. We clarified that it could have up to 10 hens with 1 rooster. And we added the addition of the high density residential district in there. We updated language throughout the ordinance to ensure native plants will be required to meet all landscape requirements of the ordinance. We added a marquee sign to Article 8 and some regulations regarding that sign. We also added a definition into Article 10 for short-term rentals. And from a previous version of the zoning map, you may have noticed there was a drafting error. 2 neighborhoods that are in the upper portion of the map were accidentally marked LDR. They were intended to be MDR, and that was caught by a drafting error. So we apologize for that, but that is clarified on the new map that we presented just a couple slides earlier. Okay, so new uses. I know some of the people in the audience might be here to discuss some of these new uses and why are we regulating them, or why are we even discussing them? Just wanted to talk about that real quick. So the ordinance assessment suggested that we address new uses, and the reason we address new uses, and this is a planning technique used in every community in America. You want to be proactive in reviewing your ordinance so that you can allow for a controlled use in appropriate areas of the town before there's an influx or popularity of that use. Because once that comes into your town, you can no longer regulate it. So if it's something that might cause what we call nuisances, like I said, odor, sound, light, that might affect your neighborhoods, you want to keep ahead of that. So the current ordinance includes some new or even expanded regulations for some uses. And those are beekeeping, chicken keeping, accessory dwellings, wineries and distilleries, short-term rentals, RV parks and campgrounds, and some new signs in Article 8. So we just wanted to address the topic of chicken keeping. We noticed that, and again, it's just not in Sylva, but it is throughout most of North Carolina, that chicken keeping and beekeeping are 2 very popular homesteading sort of popular discussions that are gaining a lot of ground. So we wanted to make sure that it's allowed, but we want to keep it regulated. So agricultural uses, separated out those into level 1 and level 2. Level 1 being those that are allowed on residential and pretty much anywhere in the town, as long as they meet certain requirements. And then level 2 are your typical agricultural uses that don't meet the threshold necessarily of level 1 and are done as more of a business use. So chicken keeping is proposed to be allowed in the LDR, the MDR, and the HDR. So that's all 3 of the residential zoning districts. It is allowed on single-family detached homes only. Up to 10 hens and 1 rooster per property. There's no permit required, but you must keep the chickens in a coop overnight. And then during the day, they should be contained on the lot and not allowed to roam off the lot. They must be in the rear yard, and any coop structure must be set back 15 feet from the side yards. Another topic of discussion are short-term rentals. Right now, these are again proposed to be permitted in the MDR, the HDR, the downtown business, and the professional business. There are not a ton of requirements for this, except that there's parking requirements. If it's a new construction or a submission of a development plan to establish a short-term rental, there's a requirement for a traffic diagram. It requires signage on the outside of the building with the owner contact information. There are enforcement regulations in case there are, again, nuisances created by the short-term rental involving the police. And then just wanted to note that case law regarding municipal control over short-term rentals is constantly changing. So the reason that it's not highly regulated is simply because there's constant turnover. Wilmington, North Carolina had a requirement to register short-term rentals, and that was struck down by the courts. And that is currently going on appeal. But under the picture, you'll see a little thing. Why do we regulate this at all? Because short-term rentals are a wonderful source of income for property owners. But why would we want to regulate it? Short-term rentals take housing that's in a neighborhood that could be sold or occupied by a family or a single resident, by a permanent resident, and take it sort of off the market. And then short-term rentals operate more as a business. So it reduces the housing stock, affordable housing, and then the longevity of residents. So we'd like to see, again, the reason that it's not currently, discussed about being in the low density residential is to, again, preserve some of those neighborhoods. Okay, so for the Board of Commissioners, one of the things that we need to talk about, and it is a requirement of 160D, is that we show there is a correlation or a consistency between the zoning ordinance and the land use plan. So we talked about the land use plan at the beginning part of this presentation, and I just wanted to go through some of the ways that those two are consistent. So again, this is just a basic outline of the 160D requirements for the governing board that they must do when approving a zoning ordinance. Subsection A of 160D 605 indicates plan consistency. When adopting or rejecting any zoning text or map amendment, the governing board shall approve a brief statement describing whether its action is consistent or inconsistent with an adopted comprehensive plan. Further, if a zoning map amendment qualifies as a large-scale rezoning under 160D 602B, the governing board statement describing plan consistency may address the overall rezoning and describe how the analysis and policies in the relevant adopted plans were considered in the action taken. Further, subsection B says that there is a reasonable statement for rezoning, and that basically just says when adopting or rejecting a rezoning petition for a zoning map amendment, the statement analyzing the reasonableness of the proposed zoning shall be approved by the governing body. And then subsection Z just says that those two statements may be made together and approved as a single statement. So we won't be looking to do that tonight. That will be simply a discussion as we're doing this presentation. And then when you are ready to approve or take a motion on the approval of this, that's when we'll talk about the reasonableness or the consistency. But the first land use plan goal 1, is to, again, we mentioned this earlier, is to maintain downtown Sylva as a unique and historic and vibrant and attractive local regional destination. Action 1.1 is consistent with the changes that we have made to the zoning ordinance, or that you're going to make to the zoning ordinance. Develop new and strengthen existing zoning standards and design guidelines during the ordinance update. Land use plan goal 2, establish the NC 107 corridor as a model corridor in southwestern North Carolina. Action 2.1 is, which again is consistent with some of the changes that are being proposed. Develop zoning standards and design guidelines during Sylva's zoning ordinance update. This talks about the commercial corridor overlay that is proposed along Highway 107. And then land use plan goal 5, the physical character and identity of Sylva is maintained through a high degree of aesthetics and quality development. Action 5.1 talks about updating the zoning code to ensure sufficient design standards, landscaping, buffers and screening, and amenities in the development projects. So, all right, moving forward. Just to wrap up here, where do we see this going? So tonight, we're going to hear concerns and feedback from the public. Then you will close or continue this public hearing. Consider the planning board recommendation in your deliberations, and then address any items that need update, removal, or further discussion from the ordinance prior to approval. At your next meeting, which is slated for the 24th of this month, you can make a motion to approve or deny the land use plan and future land use map. You can approve, again, motion to approve or deny the zoning and subdivision ordinance that we're presenting tonight. And then make that statement or approve the statement as to the consistency with the land use plan and the reasonableness of the land use map or the zoning map. And then in the future, we recommend that you address the items that were not a part of this project, and we have provided you with a list. And that includes some things like updating the zoning map to see if you want to expand or reduce any of the sizes of the specific districts, or discussing any of the additional uses. We also ask that you revisit the ordinance and see what is working and what's not working, and then amend your ordinance as needed. So with that, I'm going to wrap up my presentation. I apologize for the length. If you have any questions or comments, I assume we will hear those during public comment. And again, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Karen, for your presentation to us. We have John here for any comment.
Can hear. Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
No.
John. Now, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
We will now start our public hearing, and I will again say that those that wish to speak have the opportunity to speak for 3 minutes each. And this is just a time for you to express your concerns to the board. It's not to start a dialogue between members of the commissioners and you. So if you'll just tell us what your concerns are, and everybody will make note of those. And after all of the comments are taken, the board will have a discussion. So I appreciate it if everybody would follow those rules. And Amanda will be our timekeeper. She has a clock, so you will hear the little beep from it if your time is up. Thank you for understanding. Again, the first person to speak is Roger Stevens.
Well, the only concern I have with this is the regulation on the land use. And I would like to recommend that if you're going to put restrictions on chickens, and I'm not being smart, we need to put restrictions on the breweries. If you have to keep chickens behind the fence and keep fenced in for all the time where they don't wander, and I believe that would be a good thing, is not as for anybody everybody's got the right to drink beer if they want to, and to drink it. We've got in the town of Sylva, we've got restaurants that serve it, they can go in and drink, but I think it ought to be restricted there. I don't think you ought to get out on the street and be able to carry it out around open. And I don't think it to walk it around, because that's going to come, that'll be a hazard. And as far as the chickens, I don't, I would go with the land use and the restrictions on 10 chickens. I don't know if that's in a country where we've had the freedom to raise. And I've never had any problem with chicken. This is just my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, I have Molly Harrison.
Hello, my name is Molly Harrison. I've come here to push for changes to the proposed new ordinances involving the chickens in town. First, I'd like to address how the chickens affect the businesses of the downtown Sylva. For those who believe that they could affect the dining business, I argue that anyone who is willing to eat lunch with the stench of the paper mill isn't going to be swayed by the roosters. In fact, the chickens provide an organic waste disposal service for restaurants in town and provide fresher eggs than those found in stores. The only business types I could imagine this being an issue with are the ones that involve sleeping, but the motels and inns are far from the roosters, with the exception of maybe an Airbnb or two, like the one owned by one of the board members. I can assure you that for every negative comment on the rooster crows, there are 50 smiles from their presence in the community. My family recently moved here from a more rural location. We felt the chickens bring a charm to this town that raised it a step above the surrounding towns. They bridge the gap between the farm and the restaurant experiences in town, adding to the aesthetic. I vend at the market every weekend, and every weekend we have people show up strictly to enjoy the chickens. People bring their children to play with them regularly, and teenagers bring their families during holiday visits. The chickens are mascots of the art market, and a few even do tricks. Countless times I've seen people's faces light up at the sight of the chickens at the market. Their smile only gets bigger when we offer the chance for them to feed, pet, or even hold them. I truly feel that these ordinances are targeting jam flock unjustly. The amount of smiles and positive reactions to these birds far outweigh the few negative comments to recently arise. Let's not allow a couple of complaints to ruin such a great experience for hundreds of others.
Thank you. I have one technical thing I have to ask. Are we supposed to excuse people as they speak and have others come in, or how are we going to get the rest of the people in here?
You'll have to do that to allow everyone.
So, Mr. Stevens and
Swap places in the
Ms.
hallway.
Harrison, if you'll just leave, you can stay here, but we just need to let the other people in so that they can have their say. Thank you very much. Next on my list is Chloe Burnett.
Hey there. So I just wanted to specifically address what was listed in the new ordinances, starting at, I believe it's Article 5.4, C, agricultural uses. It starts by saying that chicken keeping has to be limited to a minimum lot size of 7,000 square feet, 10 hens only. However, I just don't think that the lot size should really pertain to the number of chickens people should have and how they can use the land. People use chickens to prepare the land for growing plants. A lot of our land is developed and stripped down to clay. People need the right to use their land as they need. It says that chickens should be limited to a single family detached dwellings only. However, I just don't see any practical reason for this. Number two, let's see, chickens must be kept in a coop, portable tractors, all that is, and must be secured in a coop during non-daylight hours. But chickens do not need specific laws stating where they sleep at night. I mean, as long as they're still secured in a pen behind fencing on the property, most chickens prefer to sleep in the trees at night. I think if they're being kept on the property, that it's a silly rule to address where they sleep at night. Number 3 is that coops, pens, tractors have to be located in the rear of the lot only. I just don't think that makes sense because not all properties are laid out the same. They're not all the same size and they're not all the same layout. And I just don't see a practical or aesthetic reason why they have to be kept in the back. I mean, some people may think that chickens aren't pretty, but I think a lot of other people here might disagree. It's very much an opinion. Number 4, there was a minimum setback required of 15 feet from the side or rear of the property. But again, I think that goes back to having space very limited in the town of Sylva and how every plot is laid out differently. I think requiring a 15-foot setback would put too much pressure on residents who already struggle to work with the steep slopes and limited spaces that they have. A coop must be closer to the chicken owner's primary residential unit than to a neighboring residential unit. Again, the properties in town vary greatly in size, shape, and layout. So I just don't know that that makes sense. Chicken owners should be allowed to work with the space that they have, as long as their chickens do remain enclosed. Number 6, in the event that a nuisance is not abated, yada, yada, you could take away the owner's use permit, meaning their right or ability to own chickens. I think this has already been addressed. No use permit should be required, or there shouldn't be a special permit. Number 7, no more than 10 hens. This is the big one here. We have emailed a lot of the commissioners here on board today about why a 10 hen limit is just too few. It doesn't make sense for many chicken owners, especially those who collect eggs. And roosters, they're great.
Thank you very much. And if you could swap out your place with someone that is waiting in the hall.
Yes, ma'am.
Next is Kayla Peck.
Yeah, hi. I wanted to say, first of all, Jackson Arts Flock is pretty much a free petting zoo. You get that experience without having to pay the big bucks for the zoo, and it's really educational and beloved by especially the children. And I think it's incredibly important to the businesses inside Jackson Arts Market. It's part of what drew me to this town, what prompted me to move here. Seeing the chickens every day, I never thought I would like chickens. I love them now, and I know they're helping a lot of other people get over their fears. George is actually really important too, and all the chickens, they're just a part of our businesses, part of our lives. They draw people in. Without them, I think we would have a significantly less of a crowd for our businesses, our small businesses and local art. And I think they need to be represented in here because they're an essential part of this town. And if you want to keep Sylva, it needs the chickens.
Thank you. Next, I have Aaron Hinsley.
Hello, I'm a local resident who moved here last year. And the only thing I just wanted to discuss is on the matter of the chickens and the social district. For the social district, I'm for it, but my only concern is that there are no public restrooms available in the town. And I feel like if we are going to allow people to open carry with their drinks, we need to have some kind of accommodation for them to be able to use the restrooms, because if not, we will have the situations of people urinating or vomiting on private property in the downtown district. As far as the chicken goes, to me, whenever I invite friends and family to Sylva, the main thing that they mention is the chickens. That's what makes this town unique. And I feel that if we put this regulation in place, we're going to force the art market to liquidate half of their, if not more, of their chickens. And I feel like if we are America, the pursuit of happiness, we should allow all people to be welcome to pursue their version of happiness. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, I have Brendan Volker.
Very much in line with the gentleman sitting next to me. I'm a vendor at the local arts market. I live a little further up the mountain. And of all the arts markets I've ever gone to and all the places I enjoy selling my product, it's here in town. There's a lot of different reasons to that. It's really just amazing when you see the kids come in, the parents come in, even the college kids come in, and chickens are front and center. I mean, they're not front and center, they're still off to the side and up high on the hill, but they bring so much joy to so many people's lives. It's a really cool thing to see, and it makes for a really cool environment. I think the different regulations between limiting those down to 10 takes away from their ability to effectively have a flock for one. I also think that moving the fence back in 15 feet then makes that space even more ridiculously small. And as Chloe mentioned before, there's, different shapes and different property lines that don't necessarily always fall into a cookie cutter realm of 15 feet, or moving this 2 feet over from here. And I think that there should be exceptions to that, or I think that should be completely reconsidered. And yep, very soon. Let's see. Yeah, that was about where I really want to fall in line with. I just think that that's, like what's been said, it's a very critical part to Sylva. It's something I really enjoy about the town. It's a reason I enjoy coming here and going to the brewery or going to the markets and supporting the local businesses. And I think it does drive a lot of different types of unique traffic to different businesses around here, or keep it in town longer. So.
Thank you very much. Next, I have Mark Jones.
Appreciate it. Sorry, where do I need to stand?
It's right there.
Okay. My name is Mark Jones. I've got some concerns and some questions I would like to ask about the social deal. I'm just.
Let me just say for your, okay, go ahead.
Okay. So one of my questions is the theory here, or is y'all's thoughts about, with this social district is designed to help all the businesses, banks, everybody in town? Is that the design? Well, if that's the design, then we've got a problem. 3 of the board members on businesses in downtown. Excuse me. You all have monetary vests and monetary gains in this. And according to article in the new board, or in the new article you're bringing up, section 2-3, where it says code of interest, a member of the Board of Commissioners shall not vote on any legislative decision regarding the development regulation adopted pursuant by this article, and the outcome of matter being considered is reasonably likely to have a direct, substantial, and readily identifiable financial impact on the member. So from where I'm standing, and according to what Mr. Nesler, the lady that owns the business downtown, you want these people to come. Sure. So they'll buy your beer. So they'll buy your product. That's a conflict of interest. Have you researched that? Madam Mayor, you might want to talk to your city attorney, because you got 3 board members now that's going to benefit monetarily gains on this. The townspeople are going to like this. I mean, where do we go from here? You're going to allow drinking, and don't tell me 2,000 college kids isn't going to show up down here on Friday night. There's going to be urine in every corner, feces in every corner, looting. You're going to bring it in. It's happening in every other city. Why won't it happen here? You've got almost 13,000 students 5 miles away. 5. And you're welcoming them down here with open arms. Come and buy my beer. Come and buy my retail products. Come and rent my Airbnb. You know, you're the one gaining off this. You the people, the one that said this. You the people that wrote the articles on this. You're breaking your own laws. Why isn't something been said now? You had 2 weeks to research this, from when Bernadette Peters went to Annapolis to come back here. Nobody researched it. Who's liable when somebody gets hurt? The town?
Thank you, Mr. Jones.
Thank you.
Okay. Next, I have Vanjie Jones. So, yes.
I just want to say this new ordinance or this updated ordinance y'all have prepared is a bit of a disappointment to me. I know it's a lot of work. Y'all have done your research, but I'm disappointed in when this took place, how this process happened, and I'm really disappointed about who this ordinance represents. Now, this whole process began during COVID. And I don't know if that was on purpose or if that was on purpose. There's a lot of hardship going on in 2020. People were surviving the best they can. Times were uncertain. We were stressed and we were having a difficult time. And a lot of people resorted to chicken keeping, beekeeping, growing crops on their own land. And I feel like this ordinance is here to attack that. And I'm very disappointed in that. I'm also disappointed in the process of this. You've contracted out a business that does not know this town at all. Just by looking at this ordinance and what has been covered, she does not know this town. Yes, she's probably worked with a lot of towns across this state and knows a lot of stuff. She's very smart. But did she talk to one person in this room about what we wanted, or how we felt, or what we wanted to do with our land? No. And I feel like she does not represent this town, not my town, not the town that I've lived in and my ancestors lived in since probably around late 1700s, 1800s. And I'm also very disappointed in who this ordinance really represents. This is not about the citizens. This is about how we present ourselves to the rest of the world to bring in tourism and to bring in money, which is fine, but it becomes more about money and not about welfare, which is what this is supposed to provide for us, safety and health. This is not what I see when I look at this ordinance. This is about how we are to project our image so that people can come in here. And that's not my ethics. That's not my values. My values is going to work, coming home, enjoying my property, enjoying my land, whether that be with chickens or bees or growing something that makes me happy. Now, when you mess with that, you mess with my welfare, you mess with my life, and you all need to rethink this ordinance. And as a matter of fact, I think the author said it was a living, breathing document. I think you need to kill this document, and I think you need to start over, and I think you need to include the citizens of Sylva whenever you construct this. Thank you.
Amen.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. And if you could vacate your chair for someone else, thank you. Next, I have Garrett Craig.
Hi. I just want to preface all my comments with one grounding statement, which is that I think the town of Sylva is like truly special and beautiful, and it's why so many of us choose it and why so many of us are here now. With that in mind, just a few comments on the ordinances. First, I want to thank the leaders who have given this difficult process full attention and fought for improvements. Those who have refused to rush things for the sake of politicians and consultants in Raleigh. That said, I do still have concerns paired with hopes for making this better before it's finished. One thing that's not in my script is I thought the jam chickens were actually going to be safe, and I definitely want them to be safe because it does bring joy to a lot of people. It is one of the things that makes this town unique. Furthermore, especially in times of COVID, whether it's with supply chain difficulties or families facing longstanding economic difficulties, it's vital that any change in local policy, which there are obviously a lot of on the table right now, prioritizes food security and prioritizes sustainability, not aesthetic. Basically, the ability of our people to care for the people that they love. Proposed restrictions on chickens and beekeeping, especially laws that seem to unjustly target residents with less capital, who may even benefit the most from raising restricted livestock, are arguably unnecessary and cruel. Likewise, strict limits on the ability of home and landowners to erect accessory structures, which I know that's been revised slightly. Like sheds and greenhouses, damage our beautiful community's ability to feed and care for itself independent of often feeble supply chains. With regard to accessory structures, I'd like to suggest, I know improvements have been made, but that all residential properties be allowed up to 500 square feet so as to not penalize people with a smaller residential footprint. In the bigger picture, I just ask that all commissioners continue to take great care to remove that from this document, any unneeded burdens that fail to account for our community's unique shape, unique needs, and just generally what makes it Sylva. As we push back on restrictions now, and as future restrictions are discussed down the road, I just hope town leaders mind some things that I think, as a relatively new resident, mind you, make Sylva special. This is a place that combines love for freedom and love for community, a place where diverse co-ops seem to sprout almost daily, where people from all walks feel welcome, safe, and supported, where local agriculture coexists with a bustling downtown, where purposeful small businesses can still thrive in 2021, in 2022, and where opportunity is largely unhindered by big money. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Adam Bigelow. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
He's coming.
Should I speak from back in here or can I come out? Hi, everyone. My name is Adam Bigelow. I'm a horticulturist, botanist, and regional expert on native plants of Southern Appalachia. And I'm here to speak about birds, not chickens. Sorry. But the birds and the insects that rely on native plants in the landscape and in the world around us to be able to move energy up and into the system. I wrote a bad thing. I won't be able to read it all because of this 3-minute time limit, but I sent it to all the county commissioners in the town, or the town commissioners. So I commend y'all for your efforts. I'm grateful that there's an inclusion of native plant ordinance and requirement and using strong language. Because native plants in the landscape is an important and vital part of our much needed move towards sustainability and in the work that I like to call saving the world. This is not exaggeration. Our culture has impacted negatively over 95% of the Earth's ecosystem. And with that goes negative impacts on 95% of the world's living species and organisms. We've been favoring in our built, planned and home landscapes plants from other parts of the world, mostly because nothing is chewing on the leaves. And we think if something's chewing on the leaves of our plants, that's bad. So we got to react and start spraying stuff all over the place and kill them. Meanwhile, we are in an era that many entomologists and people who study insects are calling the insect apocalypse. This is a rapid and marked decline in the number and diversity of insect species. Like me, some of y'all might remember going on road trips on summer vacation and having to stop every few hours and clean the bugs off the front of your windshield and clean the insects off the front of your headlights. And back in the 1980s, they actually made these things called bras for the front of the cars. Some of y'all younger folk might not remember that. We don't have to do that now because we've killed off the bugs due to negative impacts on habitat and also the prevalent use of pesticides, including herbicides. So this revised ordinance and inclusion of language requiring the use of native plants in future development, you are going a long way to helping to ensure that life as we know it has a chance to continue. I'm in favor of that. I don't know about y'all. I do have concerns over the wording that would allow the zoning administrator to let substitutions of exotic and possibly even invasive plants be substituted based on perceived supply chains issues, plant availability, or what I didn't understand, lack of viable native species. We live in one of the most biologically diverse places in the entire temperate world. Every bit of land around us can be planted and filled with a native plant. There's no reason to say, oh, just because maybe it's not at Lowe's or Walmart or one of the local nurseries. I have a whole lot more to say. So
I'm
You
sorry.
might want to call the sheriff. No, I'm just kidding.
Thank you very much.
Arbitrary.
Next, I have Cameron Jones.
All right, I'm here about, sounds like what everybody else is here about, but the big picture here is life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We all have that right. And my grandpa, Jack Cameron Allison, who was the mayor of this town at one time, fought for that right. And I'm here to fight for that right because I feel this whole thing steps all over all that, limiting what people can grow on their land, limiting what they need to survive. Aesthetics and beauty don't come into it. But if you ask me, if there's a bunch of chickens sitting over there, I think it's a beautiful thing. I think God created it for us to enjoy. They take care of us, we take care of them. The dependency of the size of your flock depends on your need. It doesn't depend on looks or smells or anything like that. To keep a viable flock, it's the need of your family, the need of your community. Help your neighbor. Your neighbor needs some eggs, you got some extra, take them over there. I mean, the Bible tells us love thy neighbor, and that's what we're supposed to do. So, I mean, me personally, do you think you're gonna have more trouble, have a bunch of chickens running around, or a bunch of inebriated folks running around all the time? What's gonna cost you more money in the long run? I mean, from people who may not even be here, and I'm glad y'all brought up the 50-year thing, because guess what? May 1st, I turned 50. And I was born in C.J. Harris Community Hospital, right over here in East Sylva. And my family's lived in East Sylva hundreds of years before me. They all had chickens. Chickens ain't nothing new. It may have spurred some people to go back to the old ways, but they're the old ways, and they're the good ways. And then the way we people in Sylva love. Sure, we'll share your community with everybody else, but don't take away our rights just so you can do whatever you want. And please don't tell us how to use our land, and just rethink this whole thing. Thank you.
Next, I have Linda Phillips.
I was fixing to leave.
My family's been here since 1900. But my things are a little bit different than other places. I don't have any chickens, no rooster either. But what my concern is, are you permitting changes in residential areas into subdivisions? And are they going to be near my property? I don't like that. Is Sylva going to create a skateboard park? The other towns around us have them for their use, and the skateboarders come at you on the road where you're driving. It scares you because you could hit them in a flash. They don't have no place to go. And also, if people have gardens in their front yard of the residential home and then not maintain it and leave the crap there year after year and don't even have it the year before, but they leave the crap there and all the neighbors get to see it. That's all I have to comment.
Thank you, Ms. Phillips.
But I hope we get a skate park soon. For the youth, they need something to do.
Next, I have Ann Link.
Hi, I'm Ann Link. I'm a 5th grade teacher. I work in Cherokee. I have several things to say. Start at the top. First of all, I don't know if anyone is familiar with this, but public health indicators for Western North Carolina are far behind the rest of the state. And as per that, Dogwood Wellness is putting in millions of dollars into public health in this area. So I think that prioritizing land use for food access and agricultural use should be its first priority. So my concerns are under agricultural uses of section 5. We have this distinction between level 1 and level 2, but they don't say where those levels are allowed. I'm also concerned about where goats are which level they fall into, and that distinction is not made into what areas they're allowed in. Also, chickens being permitted on single-family detached dwelling units only. This limits access for people who can't afford homes. And why are we not just letting apartment complexes or people who have duplexes regulate that individually? I don't think there should be a need for regulating that at a higher level. The minimum setback of 15 feet for both chicken and bees. So this also limits access. This requires that you have enough money to buy enough land that you can fit this in a place that you would like. And that also limits access for lower income people. And we should all know that we're not rich here. None of us are. And so I think that we should be considering all of these ordinances from the perspective of someone who is low income, because that is the majority of people that we are representing right now. And that also, again, that same thing was with beehives. And there's also a limit for beekeeping. The minimum lot requirement for beekeeping shall be 10,000 square feet. Again, why are we having limited land requirements? If you own it, you should be able to decide what you do with it. Under 5E, automobile repair and services. Number 2 says that all external work on a car should be done without within a closed doors and a properly ventilated indoor area. Again, we don't all have the money to afford nice garages to do work on our cars. And for the people who are doing work on their cars themselves, likely if they had the money, they'd send it off somewhere else, because that sounds hard. All right, and oh no. All right, someone else. We're gonna have to tackle Airbnbs.
Thank you very much, Ms. Lee.
You're welcome.
Next, I have Patricia Jordan. And again, may I ask those that have had their chance to speak, if you will allow someone else to come in to sit.
Hello, I'm Patricia Jordan, and I want to talk about Skyland Drive and the proposed trailer park that's over there is going to be behind the WRGC. Is that what's going on? I've heard very little about it. I just want to know what's going on there.
That is not in the town limits. That would be something you would have to take up with the county.
Okay. No, I didn't want it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jordan. Have I missed anyone that wanted to speak on the zoning ordinances? Yes, do I have your name here?
Joshua Murch.
Yes, I saw, that's what I looked at. It wasn't checked that you wanted to speak, so.
Okay.
You may speak now.
Cool, thank you. Appreciate y'all listening to us today. I also appreciate the town's priority towards cleaning up our river. That's wonderful. In regard to our social district, Sylva does not have any infrastructure to support people consuming alcohol in public spaces other than Butty Park, which has been closed since COVID. There are no public restrooms in town on Main Street. The majority of Sylva's downtown alcohol serving businesses, 9 out of 13, are located east of Spring Street. Most of their patrons park in the Main Street, which has got the sign that says public parking area. I know town only owns that small lot, but in the back of it, there is space for a structure. This is where I propose is an appropriate place for Sylva Main Street's public restroom. We'll be out of the way of town aesthetics, yet in the center of our drinking traffic. Another concern is our public access, which was filed underneath like our grave access. So public access is not just an issue for downtown, but all of Jackson County, which I feel like we need to set principle for. It's an issue across our nation as well. Public access is being threatened continuously by severing the link between public roads and public land. Pressure falls onto National Forest Service and land trusts to find funding and purchase easements and corridors, land linking between the public roads and public land. Even our National Forest Service loses access and the ability to maintain our public lands. Often it is as simple as the last house on the road putting up a gate. An example of this is on Buff Creek Road, where you don't have access to get to Forest Service Road 359 because there's like 2 properties there. And also Paris Branch, where a lot of locals have been going till recently. That's when I moved here, everyone went up Paris Branch, but you can't anymore. There is also large developers who want private access rights where they should remain public. An example of this is at Rock Mountain and Chimney Top down Cashiers, where there have been conservation efforts for the 500+ acres of historical trails and public access. There's no longer access as of 2020. The current terms used in the proposed ordinance for, what is it, 6.16 public access are using assured, reasonable for the people who are going to be visiting these grave sites, which is not a strong term, and then encouraged for the developers who are going to be blocking off of our roadways to maintain access for us. And yeah, encouraged is not a very enforceable word, so we need some strength there. Apparently I have more time to talk, so I'll say that I love my chicken. Thank you.
Thank you. I do have, yes.
I think I might have written my name under the social ordinance and I made a mistake.
No.
I think I'm the zoning ordinance.
And what is your name?
Aaron Rackman.
Okay, you may take your time right now and speak. So you want to speak on the zoning, not the social district.
Yeah, I can do with the agriculture and automobile stuff. My father has been a mechanic for over 20 years, and he's probably been working on cars for 40 years. And he's always wanted a garage. He works really hard, but he's never had the money for it. And my father's like a lot of other people. A lot of us don't have the money for garages, but we still need to fix our vehicles. And this ordinance, to me, seems classist because it seems to be punishing poor people for being too poor to have a garage. And, if I could take every problem to a mechanic, I would, but sometimes I need to take things in my own hands. And I'm sure plenty of people in here have to take things into their own hands. And that just seems really unfair. And that shouldn't be in there at all. Also, when it comes to the agriculture aspects, North Carolina, and especially Western North Carolina, is known for having some food insecurities, and taking away people's ability to raise chickens or limit where they can garden is another thing that seems really unfair to me. Just buying a house is hard enough, but to have the appropriate amount of land to have a chicken or have a garden, or I want my garden in my front yard rather than my backyard. I mean, especially with what was mentioned earlier, going through 2020, that could have been a lot of people's main source of food, how people survived. My friend right here wanted to bring up the Airbnbs. I saw that you guys were talking about regulating it. I'd like to know how you intend on doing that, because me and my wife over here, my beautiful wife, we want to buy a house. We love this area. We've been here for nearly 10 years. And it's very difficult because it seems that every decent home in this area is an Airbnb for someone who's got 2 or 3 properties. And we just have a hard time just getting one. And so if there could be any clarification on how the regulating of Airbnbs would be, if that could be clarified for me, I'd really appreciate it, because it's really hard out for the rest of us out here. And this ordinance, whether it be the automobile repairs, agriculture, or just housing in general, it just really feels like it's making it harder on us. We don't need it any harder on us. It's already been hard enough.
Now, is there anyone else that wanted to speak on the ordinances and, did you sign?
No, ma'am, I didn't. Listen to this. I live on Elm Street. My road is falling down to the other road. Our houses are being vandalized by drug dealers and everything else. We ain't got them step up and do your job.
This isn't a time for us to comment, but if you listen to our meetings, you will find out that we may be scheduling some repairs on that road very soon. Thank you. I do want to say that's all of the comments on these specific zoning ordinance issues. And now the board is going to have time to work on some of the things that have been brought up and see if they wish to talk to the Withers Ravenel people about changing or adding anything. So I will open the floor up to the commissioners, and y'all feel free to listen, but it just be discussion between our commissioners. Thank you.
Can I bring up the garage? I don't have my computer with me to look at that ordinance, but can you bring that up on the screen for us to look at regarding garages in residential districts?
Is that something Karen can do, or Karen, can you?
I can share screen, sure. Hold on one second. I'm pulling it up.
E, it's like E,
What is it?
E under agriculture uses.
This is on the garages for repair.
Oh, it's number 4. No, wait. I'm sorry, I'm trying. Page
Y'all
5.
see that?
You got it. She's got it called up.
I would just like to say that this is regarding commercial uses only. This is not intended for residential areas. This is for automobile and repair service, like commercial use only.
So is Mr. Rackman still around?
Oh, Mr. Rackman? Mr. Rackman.
My apologies.
They're talking about the automobile repair. It was just in commercial areas.
Okay.
Commercial areas or commercial businesses?
Commercial businesses.
Okay. Well, I would-
Okay.
But there's no regulation regarding repair on your own property.
Okay. My
Unless
apologies.
there is a code of ordinances that already is in existence from the town that may limit junked cars on your property. And that's simply a code of ordinance that's not affected by this ordinance.
All right. With what I have, there was nothing saying commercial on it, so that's why it was a very concerning thing to me. My apologies.
Thank you, Karen.
That's all. I wanted clarification on that.
Do we have any discussion on other areas there?
Sorry, just to clarify, this is just, we want to change, this is our, yeah, just to clarify, this is our time, the blue one, the red one? The red one, yeah, okay, there we go. But Karen, is this the time we are able to make changes, or we will still have more time to make changes if we want to, tweak these, the ordinances?
Absolutely. There's
Yeah.
still time. You're not voting on this tonight. You're voting on this on the
Exactly.
24th.
But as far as, is tonight the time for discussion for those changes, or will there be other changes? Other times for discussion of changes, I guess. I know we're not voting on it tonight. This is, really public hearing. But if we want to have discussion about such things that came up in the public.
I would think tonight is the time to have those discussions.
It's not,
And
yeah.
then we'll have some time to make the revisions and you would see those
Yeah.
revisions prior to voting.
Okay, well, I did want to touch on the number of chickens. You know, that's, you know, it was initially came up as 5 and we increased it to 10. I don't think anybody's really wanting to completely restrict the number of chickens. The idea is to have a family flock, something that's manageable, you know, by a family. Or, you know, I have chickens myself, I have 8 chickens and, you know, and for me, it's a lot, you know, 8, 10, when we've had 10 or 12, it's a lot of work. And so that's where that number came from. But I would be open to increase the number to 15 or 20. There are limits. Someone having 100 chickens in their backyard is not good for the chickens. It's a public health issue. Clearly, so that's those are the kind of guidelines we're trying to work through, but I would be open for sure for increasing the limit of chickens. And I don't know what the perfect number is, but 15, 20 seems reasonable.
55.
But yeah, but not 50.
There are people at the state that study such things you could reach out to as experts.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I've actually talked to you know, I've checked in with some folks at the university, and we can look into that as well. But what's a good number? Because ordinance is also, you know, they're really there to protect the neighbors as well. And we all live in a community, and just because someone wants, you know, they say this is what I want to do with my land, but that can have a negative impact on folks next to them. I think we've seen that over the past couple of years, how folks, you know, it's not just about taking care of themselves, but taking care of their neighbors. And that's what these ordinances do. They try and strike a balance between letting folks do what they want to do with their property, with their land, but also not impacting negatively their neighbors. And that's where some of these setbacks come from. So someone doesn't have a chicken coop right outside their chicken window because it's their neighbor's chickens. So, but and specifically talking about number of chickens, I would definitely be up for increasing that, finding a better number.
So I have a suggestion on how to approach that, because there's 300 pages of stuff to debate in this document. And I don't think going line through line and having all those debates tonight is going to be efficient. I think it's clear that there are chunks in here that warrant a lot more discussion than they've been given. The chicken one is definitely one of those. The Airbnb one is definitely one of those. The chicken debate is not a pressing issue with our current ordinance. This is just keep them in. I think we should remove these changes to the chicken ones because I don't like hardly any of them. I agree with just about everybody here on that. And I say that we work on the more substantive pressing changes that we have proposed. And we kick that back to the planning board. They can take people's public input from this discussion into account. And we can work on that issue separate. And we just keep in our revised ordinances our current language, which is on all livestock, peas, chickens. Because this is very controversial and it's upsetting a lot of people and it's upset me. And, you know, I agree with what people have to say about it. So I say we look at that another day and leave it as is with very little regulation right now because it's not, our current ordinance is not an issue. And then same thing, oh, sorry.
Can we just vote on one part of that at a time can we remove parts and leave the essential things, but these things that we're having issues with, because the current ordinance has something in it about chickens. It's always been there since 1999. And like David said, it's not a pressing issue. If we just take it out and revise it and add it back in a text amendment or.
Yes, I'd recommend getting consensus from the board.
Yes, I want to do that. I just wondered if it was okay if we did that.
Yes.
So what is the pleasure of the board?
I support what David just said, taking that out, taking the fees out, taking the Airbnb out.
So the beat, so the agriculture, so what are the certain sections? Let's talk about it. Karen, can you just tell us what sections we would be talking about?
Sure, hold on one second. Let me just pull it up here and I'll share screen again.
5.1, I think.
So 5.4 is all the accessory, the supplemental standards. So it's going to be, hold on, again, let me just share my screen here. Okay, can you see that? Yes, sorry. Yes, okay. So accessory dwellings are A, accessory structures are B. But the ones in concern are the agricultural uses in subsection C. So it would be 5.4C. If you're striking all agriculture, I would just, we'll just remove C, all agricultural uses, and they will be as is, or if you want to revert back to your current ordinance wording, we can do that as well. And then I would just recommend where you're going to allow agriculture, or do you want to struck from the table as well? So let me move up to the table. So it'll be
I would suggest we leave agricultural uses level 1 and level 2. And underneath the definitions, we would define what agricultural level 1 use is, which is chicken, hobby chicken, livestock, bees, whatever.
Would you like to see?
But don't put those regulations in there, but just designate what that use is and where it is allowed, which is every district. And then we can go back in, once we've had more discussion, if we want to add additional regulations to stick those underneath level 1.
Okay, so we would just change, if there's no regulations, then you would take out the S for the PS, it would just become permitted. So then you would allow, agricultural permitted in every zone, not with standards, because we're going to remove the standards.
Well, so no, what I was thinking is we would keep it PS, you would have level 1A, we would define it. And then B would be our current ordinance, which just states that livestock must be penned. That's the special standard that would apply. So it would still be PS. Does that make sense? And then level 2 would still be defined and then have its subsections too, because I don't think anyone has any issue with commercial.
Do you want to, would you like to see the definitions in Article 10? I can pull those up as well.
Is it the same? Is it not the same as the definition in C1A?
They're more, I'm not sure. I think they're a little bit more detailed as to what it is, but I'm pretty sure C1A and level 1 are the same. I think level 2 is defined with a much more specific list of agricultural uses.
I think that's fair.
Again, we'll submit. So what we'll do is we'll make the changes and then we'll submit them to Paige or to Amanda, and then they could be published on the website. So you would see those prior to the public hearing, or to the next meeting.
Karen, let me check with the rest of the board.
Okay. Yeah, you would probably have to talk about that a little bit.
I just want to say a few words about living downtown. It's a very close knit and very close quarters. I've not complained about your rooster at all, but your rooster wakes me up every night at 2 o'clock in the morning. Every night. You live in a community where you have neighbors, and you're not sensitive to that. This ordinance is not getting rid of your chickens. It's getting rid of 50 chickens that are living in the mud at this point. So I don't understand,
Yeah, you're talking down to me. I'll hear you.
Excuse me?
You're talking down about how I take care of my chicken. I'll hear you.
Your lot needs to be regulated because it is not sanitary.
Have you ever visited?
Your rooster needs to go away because I don't want to be downtown in a business where I would like some peace and quiet and hear your rooster.
That was the issue for you last night, not the people who were coming out of the bars. Are you kidding me? At 3:30 last night, I was up. It was not my chicken. They're quiet until
I was
about,
also up
yeah,
because of your rooster.
and it's not them.
Let's
It's,
not- Okay, this is not for discussion between everybody. This is just
I
to
just
see.
think that in this ordinance, there needs to be some process for us to talk about the noise that these animals are making.
And that's what we will do when we take this, we'll take this out, this section. If everybody on the board is agreeable with that, and we will figure it out or have it rewritten. So.
But you're saying that we're reverting back to what's already in place.
Correct.
Which does have a noise ordinance, and it does have a document about running at large. And it does have something about coexisting with your neighbors and
And about
contend that
husbandry.
species matter. And so those are in place. This is not a new rule. This is in place.
Okay, so we don't want to develop ordinances based on individual scenarios. So it sounds like
Well,
our
I'm
current,
talking about the development of your downtown area. It is ripe for development. We have every single family detached dwelling downtown having a rooster. It is a very uncomfortable situation for anybody that lives
and
down.
I agree, we should still have that debate. But I guess the question is whether we have the time to develop a smart ordinance along with 300 pages of other stuff for chickens, or if we should let our current ordinance rest in that matter and take this up. That's the question. Does the rest of the board agree with that approach?
My suggestion would be what Karen first said, just remove 5.4.c and leave things as they were until we can clarify that section.
You don't want to leave the PS in the chart? I think it'd be easier to leave PS in the chart and define level 1, right?
If you don't have standards, it's just permitted. So if you want the PS, you need the standards.
And I think we want the PS with the current standards, correct?
Yeah, so what we're saying is.
The standards of this.
Those standards apply to PS. Otherwise, I think what we're trying to get to is we want to push this back to the planning board, but want to revert to the current standards for this temporarily, basically, right? That's what I'm hearing.
So it would still be PS, but instead of C1B, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, we would have our current standards in those places. So those are the that's what makes it qualify as PS. The chart doesn't change. We define agricultural level use 1 and 2. And it is still permitted with special standards. The special standards are current ordinance standards, not these new ones.
Yeah, so Karen, however we want to just fall back, whatever the verbiage needs to be, the language needs to be, we want to fall back to our current regulations on our level 1 stuff here, okay? And whether or not we leave PS or not, we'll leave that up to you, whatever, to make it work.
Okay, Daniel's on the call. I think you guys have all at some point in time met Daniel. Daniel, did you still have a comment? I'm just gonna.
No, I think we just hit the nail on the head. The current ordinance, the Code of Ordinances, Chapter 6, which is not the zoning ordinance, is what regulates chickens. So regardless if this is PS or not, that's the regulation that's already in place. If we just remove that 5.4.c, that should control it, and we're back to the way it was before.
Okay, great, thanks.
Do we need a vote or just?
Sounds fine to me.
Okay, are you okay, Natalie?
Okay.
And you're good.
Yeah, and then we're also giving direction to the planning board to take this up.
Can I just ask a question? You were also removing beekeeping as well?
Right, anything that's under that agricultural uses level 1. I think the safe thing is just define it and keep our current ordinances that control those uses.
Okay, understood. I just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
And then the next topic was the Airbnb. So this one I think is maybe a little different because there is a pressing need, I think, to regulate Airbnbs. I think what we have in there warrants more debate for sure. And I don't think we have time before next month to do that. Do we want to leave in the preliminary language that is there, or do we want to revert back to our current for that as well?
What is it currently?
Currently, it's just like, that you need a conditional use permit, which would now be a special permit in certain districts, I think only low density. And then in the rest, it's just, I could be right, maybe it's a special permit everywhere. I'm not-
We don't currently have regulations on Airbnbs. There's a regulation on bed and breakfast inns.
I thought the language is short-term rental in the current ordinance.
I can find it.
That is correct. There is no regulation currently on Airbnb at all. Or short-term rentals.
Can you scroll to that page, Karen?
So then do we want to keep the current language and just decide, did I turn that off? Sorry, and then decide to debate that later, or remove it entirely and debate it later?
Board members,
Because I think there's a lot of imperfections in it and inconsistencies.
here you go, short-term rentals for everyone.
Yeah. So there's this list, there's also the locations where it's permitted, which is not shown in that area, but not every district gets that as the PS. I know like low density doesn't.
It's PS in the middle density, medium density residential, high density residential, downtown business, and professional business.
That's fine. We can just go with what's going on now. And I think this is definitely a topic that is very high right now. Karen just said, right, even Karen has said that this is something that is like up to the minute in litigation with the state. I think that it's a bigger conversation. So I'm in favor of leaving it where we have it.
Like
in our old ordinances.
And again, kicking it to the planning board to maybe see if we could come up with some more nuanced language.
All right. So Airbnb, we're just gonna go back to the old and let the planning board discuss that. Do I have anybody that's not in agreement with that?
I mean, does anyone have any particular problems with this additional language?
I need to see how that affects BY.
Right, and I don't really understand the improved development plan either. Okay, so maybe, yeah, I agree with Greg on that. Then I think we absolutely need to have that scheduled, probably even before a chicken debate is an Airbnb debate.
But the concern is to pull it off now, before, when you approve.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so again, I just want to make sure that you understand there is no current regulation on Airbnb. So they will continue in every zoning district currently, as it is currently.
Okay, Karen, may I ask this I think, for the board? If we leave that in there and then we still ask the planning board to address it, we can then come back and change it before we make the final approval.
You could, yes, or like you said, you could, there's a couple of things you can do. You could leave it in as a use and allow it in all the districts with conditions, with the standards, and these be the standards. You can limit which districts it goes in and eliminate the standards and just say that it's permitted with no standards in certain districts, so that it would be a P rather than a PS. And then you could have your planning board come up with the conditions and then change it to PS. You could strike it entirely and have planning board look at it at a later date, and then again, just add in a line item for short-term rentals. So there's a couple of different options. If there's a district that you certainly don't want them in, I would recommend then leaving it as a line, as a use in your use table, and just excluding it from that specific zoning district. And then eliminating the standards until planning board has a time to develop standards. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does make sense. I mean, the standards that are in here are pretty harmless. I mean, 2 parking spaces. I mean, maybe some of them are a little nitpicky on things, but I think like the big debate that we need to have is in which districts we're gonna allow these. And then maybe what additional regulations we might put on those. So because it is such a pressing issue right now, I think maybe the smart thing to do would be to leave it in. So we have some regulation but immediately have that debate with the planning board on how we want to change these regulations. I don't know.
I guess I'm fine with leaving this in because, my Airbnb is grandfathered in. But if you're downtown and you have a building and you wanted to do an Airbnb in it, 2 parking spaces must be provided. That's not possible for me.
Right, so that's also, yeah.
That's a district issue.
Right, so that's something we would have to, didn't get flushed out in debates as yet.
So can we leave it as it is, but in the table, can we put that it's a special use or something? Well, these won't be, these aren't approved anyhow, so.
Correct. So you could also do that, Mayor. I'm sorry, I did not mention that as an option. You could change it to a special use permit. And then anyone who wants to do an Airbnb would need to come before the board for approval in a quasi judicial hearing where you could set those standards for what they needed to do. So it would be on a case by case basis. So if it was in downtown, you might not require parking, but if they have 18 bedrooms, you might want to require, a parking lot versus just a number of parking spaces. So if you do an SUP, that gives you more control over the individual use. And then you would just decide, again, what districts you would like that in. Now, I hesitate towards recommending that because, again, of the case law, where you can and cannot is okay. Requiring something over and above a normal rental, however, is frowned upon. So we don't require normal rentals to have an SUP. So requiring that would be a little bit more of a stretch there. So but Eric's there, so might defer to him.
I prefer not to hear every person that wants to have an Airbnb in their house have to come before this board for permission. And I would also like for anybody who owns property in the town of Sylva that wants to rent out a room in their house to have that right.
Right, so I think we'll probably want to make this, we'll probably have some differentiation between standalone units and whatnot. So we have a lot to tackle on this one. I definitely don't want it to be an SUP sort of situation. I say the planning board and us, we have put some thought into this. As it is, it'll hold fine until we can get the planning board to debate it. And it does put some regulations in place. So I say we just keep the language in here and plan on amending this. Very quick. Right, yeah.
Mary, are you?
Yeah, I'm done with that.
Okay, we're gonna keep it as is?
Yes.
Okay.
Until the planning board and the town board can get to discuss it. What other?
If someone else want to go. I have more. Okay, I know we have another public hearing tonight, so maybe now that we've covered sort of the big blocks, individual lines that I think need to be changed, maybe next meeting, they're small enough to where we can have that debate and amend the document then as well, or do we need to go through all those things tonight? Like for example, I thought the suggestion, so the accessory structure language change that the planning board made this last week was excellent, I thought, changing it to a percentage of square footage, but someone in here had a much better idea or a big improvement on that, that doesn't punish people with small homes by having a minimum, by saying, okay, you have 500 square feet of accessory structures or 25% of your principal building use, whichever is greater. That way, someone that lives in a 600 square foot home, you know, that might be on a 2-acre lot, doesn't have only 60 square feet of accessory structure use. So I think that's a fairly easy amendment that maybe.
We could easily make that.
Right, so I think maybe little things like that we want to hold off on.
I would say keep going with it so you can adopt. Next meeting.
Sarah LaRose.
Yeah.
That had that suggestion.
Yeah, I like that one. And I think 500 square foot is a good one. I think probably the average square foot home in Sylva is maybe around 1,800 square feet. So that would be 25% of that. So it pretty much guarantees anybody, even who lives in a smaller home, the average amount of structural accessory structure. 500 seems good to me.
The rest of the board.
Sure.
All right. The next one.
The penalty section. So there was that change in the state law about whether ordinance violations or misdemeanors. So I would like, I think we need more clarification then on how to handle penalties. And I think we maybe need to up it within our ability, penalties for certain violations, like on the environmental regulation side. Because I see a ton of these all the time in Sylva, people dumping mud in the creek, and you can't get the county to do anything about it. And I would like our ordinance language to be a lot stronger to allow us to do things about it. And I'm curious if maybe by eliminating the misdemeanor ability, if it's maybe opened up some other doors for us, other ways that we can, as a town, enforce those and have penalties on them, civil penalty. So like, can we, before we had to go to court to collect on a penalty, but if it's not a misdemeanor anymore, can we fine people for those things? Like, I have a lot of questions about that, and I think our penalty section needs a good review. Is that something we tackle now or later? I would say later.
Later.
Yeah.
The rest of the board comment later.
Just leave it in, yeah.
But then tackle it after we get all the way through.
I was gonna say, I would like to just add that change just happened fairly recently in the scope of how long we've been working on this. So there really was not much time to address those changes to that. And I would suggest that's a combination also with your code enforcement as to the best way to address some of those concerns. So it might even be like a bigger than just a planning board discussion or a council or a commissioner's discussion. That might be, you know, one again that you might need to have with your code enforcement.
Any other discussion on zoning ordinances?
Well, we had the recommendation for the exception on the native plant ordinance. So I think that's a good suggestion. Native plants can really go anywhere here. That's why they're native. So do we need an exception there? To allow someone to plant, you know, an invasive species. Are invasives allowed to be accepted? Like,
I would say no.
Right, I would agree.
That's all the ones you buy at Walmart.
Yeah, I know they're cheaper sometimes or whatever, but again, we talked about this before, that you can create a market for native plants if you're actually encouraging people to plant them. That you can create a market for, you will get more choices for it. It doesn't have to be the cheapest thing from comes and blows. And I know that's tough. I know that's hard. And I know that's hard. It costs people more money. Someone wants to put a plant in that's really cheap, but you know, it winds up being kind of a race to the bottom because that also has other consequences to the environment we all share. You know, whether it's insects the native insects that are eaten by native birds, that eat native plants. I mean, we're all connected. It's an ecosystem. So I would say no exceptions.
Any other board members?
Adam, what can you buy at Walmart that is beneficial but non-native?
Yeah, very little. So, but there are a lot of resources that I'm happy to provide to links to regional nurseries and places where it's potential that the board could incorporate language that has a resource list of where to find plants so that we're not limited to Lowe's, Walmart, or Country Road Farms, which those three in this community have very little to no straight species native plants. But when we look at our region, we have some really amazing nurseries. And for instance, I visited one of the largest on the East Coast, which is up near Burnsville recently. And I came home with a whole bunch of really cool plants, $10 each. That's cheap. You know, they're small, but then you plant them in the ground and they grow really big or whatever. So there's a lot of providing more than just looking at Lowe's and Walmart and stuff like that. You know, there's maybe 5 native plants available at Lowe's.
And this is also for landscape requirements, usually like for a commercial, and yeah, commercial landscaping companies know where to find. That thing.
Yeah, and not many of our local landscape companies are native plant focused either. But those resources exist within the larger community that we live in. And I'm happy to use my resources to share with y'all.
Thank you, Adam. We need to move along. So what is the pleasure of the board on that? Do we want to, now, is this just for commercial areas?
Yes, this is just for commercial. It's not commercial areas. It's all areas where landscaping is required. So say a subdivision was to come in and require it, you would require an industrial park or any type of industrial use. So it's not just commercial uses. It could be institutional uses. Like I said, it wouldn't be an individual residential homeowner. It would be like a developer coming in and building a subdivision that would
We're
require.
not trying to tell individual homeowners what plants they can plant. We would encourage native plants, but this is for commercial use, just to clarify.
Correct.
So I guess we're all in agreement. So no exceptions on that, right? Okay.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Oh, we're saying that there was no exception. That was what David brought up.
So you want to strike the whole thing that the zoning administrator has ability to supplement the plant list.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me just clarify, can we change it so that he can recommend a native species that's not on the list? Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Anything else?
Oh, yeah. All right, last one. I'll send the rest in an email. I want the language a little stronger on the downcast lighting, to require downcast lighting and covers on the tops.
That's fine. I'll welcome that.
Okay, yeah, thanks. It messes up bird migration. Even the lighting for the flagpoles, where the light points up, it's really bad for bird migration. I mean, we can maybe talk about some leaky details later though, but yeah, I'll stop there. Okay.
Can I make a suggestion? If there are changes, what if we can do them prior to the planning board meeting on the 17th? I would love to have all these changes made before that date and recommendations so that I can put it into a document that says this is what the commissioners and the was said at the public hearing. They'll get the transcript hopefully of the meeting. But then I would like to hear what they have to say and if they want to alter their recommendations at all to you before you vote. So I know they have a meeting on the 17th and I would again, love to have comments and suggestions prior to that so that we can have that prepared for the planning board.
If there are other suggestions, we ought to go ahead and go over them because this is our last time we will be together before their public hearing. Send them to the board, to the board.
I don't know who you want me to send them to.
Do you have anything else that you feel like the board would disagree with?
Yeah.
I would keep going.
Yeah.
Okay, the minimum distance requirements, and maybe this is something this is a holdover from the last ordinances, but I think it'd be a good time to change them. There's all sorts of really antiquated laws in there about minimum distance. Like minimum distance from a bar to a church. All sorts of things like that I think are quite outdated.
That's a state regulation.
I was just gonna ask that. Is that something that the state says?
Every one of those, there's like dozens of these in our.
That one is a state.
Okay. I have a list of them. Okay, we'll talk about those.
So how about, would you be able to, I wouldn't be surprised if we'd probably be on board with a lot of that too, especially if there's carryovers. Would be reasonable to have you send a list to Karen, and then Karen can say, these are the ones that are required by the state or whatever, and these are the ones we actually can have some say over, and then we can take it from there. Does that sound okay?
I'll be honest, I'm not 100% sure what the state legislation is on separation of all of those land uses. I know for specific, specifically for like group homes, because that's included in 160D. The other ones are in state legislation that I'm not necessarily familiar with, but like group homes, you're allowed to set what your separation is. That's allowable by the town. So certain ones you are allowed some leeway. And again, the reason that some of those separations are in is so that you don't create a district of certain things. So like the reason there is a separation between group homes or family care homes is so that you don't create like a district where you have, one neighborhood that comes in and is taken over by those types. So you allow one within like a half mile or one within a mile. So there is a reason that those sometimes those are not arbitrary distances, sometimes they are, but there is a reason that those are in there. And I know we had definitely added that to our list of things to discuss after this was approved. Again, because we didn't change it, that wasn't anything new. We felt we couldn't do a further study on that. So I can absolutely look into that. Whether I'll have that before the planning board meeting, I'm not sure.
That's fine. That's it.
Again, yeah, pointing out that this is something we're gonna look to pass this thing on the 24th, but that's not the act. And I foresee we're gonna have lots of discussions more, but getting the big thing over the finish line is still important.
Is that all the discussion then? Go ahead.
So on page 522, it says a building height can only be 30 feet. I think there will be 3 stories. Given the terrain of Sylva and the fact that we live in, I've heard it said, of this hot dog bun, we're going to be smart about growth. We're going to think about going upwards and not outwards. So there is no more room outwards. So I'm wondering if 30 feet should be increased somehow so that we can accommodate for taller structures.
Some of that is going to be dictated by building code. So I will have to look into what that is currently. And then also I know there is for commercial buildings, that's also by the extent of your fire truck, which I think is 60 feet.
The ladder truck is 60 feet.
I think I think your tallest fire, your ladder truck can accommodate up to a 60-foot building is what I think we already discussed that at some, during one of the meetings. So I will double check on building code though. I'm not sure. And what would be the interest for a residential structure to go higher or a commercial structure or both?
I was thinking on multi-family dwelling.
And if you go over 3 stories on a multifamily dwelling, you are required to put in elevators.
That was another question I had.
That's a building code.
That was in the building code.
I believe so, or it's either that or ADA. I'm not sure which one it is, but I know that's the magic number.
Okay.
Are we gonna just wait for her to come back with the information? What? Okay. Okay, for her to bring that to the planning board or to.
I don't know. Would you bring that back to us? Karen, would you bring your recommendation back to us, I guess, about the building height?
Yeah, I'll look into that a little bit more. There was how the building height was measured was changed. We did that with John's guidance. It is now measured the way that all of Jackson County is measured. So that does not take into account, again, when it's on a slope, it does take into account like the lowest habitable floor. And we provided a diagram that would show that. So I guess I just want to understand, so it's simply for multifamily dwellings, whether we would go to say a 40 or a 50-foot height, or maybe even a 60-foot height. Is there a limit to the number of stories that you would want to see in Sylva?
I would just say it would need to be harmonious with its neighboring houses.
I assume it would still need a special use permit. Any new construction over.
So that sounds like a good discussion to have, but like a separate discussion.
I think you could send that to the planning board.
So right now, most of your multifamily just so you know is as a conditional district. And I know we've mentioned what conditional zoning is, but conditional districts allow that's going to come again before the board as a quasi judicial. So anything that is coming in as a multifamily, except unless it's in the HDR or in your downtown. But if it's in your multifamily, in your mid-density residential, your general business, your industrial, or your professional business, that's a conditional district. And in those, you're allowed to set those different regulations based on the application before you. So if you're concerned about the height or the other elements that would come with a multifamily, you can address them at the time of approval.
Sounds great. Thank you.
But we'll look into seeing what options are available. If you can provide, again, just some more detail in terms of like what you're looking for in terms of the height, whether it's a single family residential that would go to 4 stories or would go to a higher building. We'll look into what the building code is. But I'm just trying to understand a little bit more what if it's just 35 feet that you're looking to go to, or is it 40 feet? Like just that kind of information.
I'm just thinking about more high density residential in downtown and also in a high density district. It is possible that, I guess this is why we don't have elevators. So this is why we don't have 3-story buildings in Coley and not 4-story buildings, because they require an elevator, which is very expensive.
Yes.
So that's not good. I would say 40 feet, 4 stories is probably reasonable.
I'd like to talk, I don't think we have any plans for anybody building 4-story buildings right now.
No. It would be a conditional use, so that's fine.
I think it's definitely something to think about for the future and talk about, but I don't know if that's right now is gonna matter, because we don't have anything. It's not like someone's coming to us, right? We've got developers coming in wanting to build big buildings.
Is everybody okay with just Karen getting us information and then we maybe work with the planning board on this also? We'll set up several things for the planning board to work on. Is that okay?
Sure. Yeah.
All right. Anything else from anybody on these ordinances? All right. Then we will move on to the second part of our public hearing.
A motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make a motion that we close this public hearing.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Yes.
It's approved. Thank you. And then we will move to our second public hearing, which is an amendment to chapter 4 of the zoning ordinance, alcoholic beverages in a social district proposal. So I will open that public hearing. Do we have someone present on that?
Good evening. The state of North Carolina passed House Bill 890 in September that allows the creation of social districts by municipalities, which define an outdoor area in which a person may consume alcoholic beverages sold by an ABC permittee. The North Carolina Retail Merchants Association was instrumental in the passage of this legislation to drive foot traffic to downtown businesses and level the playing field for brick and mortar businesses without ABC permits since we had the COVID pandemic. A lot of research was done on the ordinance, which includes meetings with our local law enforcement, our local ALE agents, our town attorney, and meetings with other towns outside the state who have had the social district for a longer duration of time. Best practices were reviewed to create the draft proposal that is available on the town website, townofsylva.org. If the ordinance passes, merchant meetings will follow to brainstorm on how the district is implemented and whether or not each business wants to participate.
Thank you. I now have a list of individuals that wish to speak on this. Again, remember that we have 3 minutes. And if you will, I think there's people that are still waiting to come in. So after you speak, if you will maybe step outside of the room, you can still be here when we hear the discussions. But the first person I have is Luther Jones.
I don't care whether a person drinks alcohol or not. That's a personal choice. I do have a problem with how we spend our tax money at times. What we're looking at is if you develop this district, we're going to have about 14 different signs around town. You're talking about that the district is open for 13 hours a day, which means now you're going to have 2 police officers, one at a time in this district. You were talking about that there is now garbage being produced by the businesses, which is going out on the street. So we're talking about additional garbage cans, additional garbage pickup. If I'm not mistaken, at this time, businesses in town are required to remove their own garbage. But now we are producing garbage, which is going out and going into the municipal cans. Bridge Park over here is only literally a bridge walk across from the public playground. I think that if we do this as part of the social district, we are going to limit families bringing their children to that park. Who pays for this? I mean, the town, are we looking at the town paying to put in the signs, put in the garbage cans, and remove garbage from this point on? Or are we talking about the businesses themselves being taxed to do it? I don't see that anywhere in this proposal. The town of Sylva recently got a 15% increase in tax base due to the evaluation. Additionally, a number of members on the board voted to increase over the 15% of an additional 1.5% for a total of 16.5% increase on the town tax base. Is this money to establish and maintain the social district from tax revenues? The adoption of the social district, I believe, will cost taxpayers money, and that I do not believe it will generate enough tax revenue to offset the cost of signage, trash receptacles, policing, and trash removal. This means that the costs are coming out of the pockets of the taxpayers of the town of Sylva in order to increase revenue of the business district downtown. Let's spend our tax money in a way that benefits all the citizens of Sylva, rather than you, as a board, are considering using our tax money to support private businesses downtown. One of the jobs of the town council is to promote business, but it is not the job of the town council to utilize general tax monies to pay for the betterment of individual businesses. I object to the use of monies from the tax base from the town of Sylva to pay for this. Now, if they want to come up and the businesses that are involved want to pay for it.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Roger Stevens.
I can't go over all he said, but in my personal opinion, it would benefit nobody. And I've got children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and I would hate for them to come through Sylva and have to meet people walking along the sidewalks and things with alcoholic beverages in their hand and along the walk. I don't think it'll benefit Sylva at all. I've never seen any beneficial come from it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Aaron Tinsley.
Madam President,
Excuse me.
he's not here.
Okay. Angie Jones.
Board members, I'm starting to question the decision-making abilities that you have. A few weeks ago, you turned down a church to allow them to have a cemetery on their own property. And it breaks my heart that that church cannot have a place to honor their loved ones. So you turned them down for whatever reason, for it's creepy or it brings property values down. And so now you've decided we need to have a place for people to party. And the Downtown Association is all about that. They don't want it to be a party destination, but it's too late. It already is. I don't know of any one full-time resident that I'm friends with or have family members that want to go downtown. They avoid downtown. They dislike going downtown. And if you're going to create this social district, you might as well close downtown through traffic. One, it's a safety issue. Two, nobody will want to go through there and spend their money on a place that is a hazard. I shiver to think about traffic going through the town and some family who is at a brewery enjoying their time, having a beer with their kids, and their kid run out in front of a car. Now you've got safety issue, you've got safety in place, but that mom or dad has been drinking and they can't react. You've got a car that's coming through and they can't react. And who created this? The town board did, because they allowed this to happen. God forbid anybody get hurt. And I think there's already been accidents in this area because we are allowing so many of these businesses to come in here. And I think we really need to figure out what our priorities are here. Citizens, board members, this is about our health and our safety and our welfare. Again, if you're going to allow this, you better close it down and put a two-way traffic through the back street, because I don't think it would do anybody any good. And it's certainly, like Mr. Stevens said, doesn't benefit anybody except the people who own those businesses. And I don't think it's worth somebody's life.
Thank you, Mrs. Jones. Kathy Watkins. Raymond Large.
Full 3 minutes. I'm speaking as a property owner of 486 and 488 West Main Street in my hometown of Sylva, North Carolina. And as an attorney with an office rented at 563 West Main Street, both my businesses are directly impacted by the social district. First, I would like to address the lack of notice for a hearing as a property owner. I was given notice of the new zoning and subdivision ordinance via letter dated 14th of January 2022. I only heard about this because the Sylva Herald had it in the paper last week. And so I think that the board should take into consideration that property owners have not really had a whole lot of time to address this social district issue. Second, I do not believe that the social district as proposed would be beneficial to the owners of businesses that serve adult beverages within the social district. The legislation that enables the creation of the social district enacts North Carolina General Statute, Section 18B, 904.1, subsection B2A, which states that the permittee, person who owns the ABC license, will have to put a sticker on some container that they then send out into the world. There is no contemplation in the legislation for reducing liability or indemnifying a business or permittee that participates in the sale from the actions of a member or customer after they purchase the adult beverage and leave the premises maintained by the permittee. I would not advise any business seeking my legal counsel to participate in such a practice that opens them to potential criminal and civil liability. The ability of the permittee, the person who owns that ABC permit, to observe and control the actions of the person purchasing the adult beverage is reduced to zero the moment they walk out on the street. What happens when the permittee's beverage container is found in the hands of someone underage or in a vehicle allegedly involved in an impaired driving accident? What happens when someone fills a drink with a business's name on it, with the sticker on it, with alcohol not purchased at the establishment, but filled with alcohol purchased elsewhere? Even though the legislation provides cursory language that prohibits the public from such actions, as someone with experience in the criminal justice system, people sometimes do not follow the rules, but pursue measures to their own devices and ends, which brings up the enforceability of the social district. We must have the resources and training within the Sylva Police Department to handle law enforcement aspect of this proposal. We are going to ask businesses that do not want to participate in the social district to enforce beverage control if they do not want people coming into the business with an adult beverage. We have vendors that sell delicate and beautiful things, and spilled beverages could impact that. As the last piece, there was comment earlier made that some of y'all are trying to line your pockets through the social district, and I think that's a bunch of hooey. You're all fine civil servants, and I thank you for your service.
Jackie Laura.
Hello, I am Jackie Laura. I am representing my staff at the Cut Cocktail Lounge and at Snake Song, a retail shop. I also am representing Jen from Guadalupe. I'm just gonna go quick on most of these, but I am very, very concerned about this. As your steward who has been protecting you from drinking, spilling out onto the streets as per my ABC license for almost 7 years now, I am very concerned. I train my staff to make sure that when you get there, you are able to drink. While you are there, you are able to drink. And when you leave, you get home safely. I've taken people home myself many times. My liability stops at the end of my business, and I have to prove that when I get my license. Driving, accidents, underage drinkings, I'm very concerned about this because the second I give you a beverage and you're gone, I can't talk you into not driving. I can't tell if you're putting booze in there and then coming back in and arguing with me that I served you that drink. Public bathrooms. My bathrooms, as somebody who owns a bar, are a problem. We clean up things that you don't want to think about. And we have no public bathrooms downtown Sylva that are accessible. So we are going to have like 3 sets of them. Public transportations, taxis, Ubers, these are not available. If you are in a city as Savannah or in New Orleans where I have worked, you can walk outside and get a taxi, walk down the street, get on that public transportation. You think that those kids coming back and forth from Western are going to think about that if they have no options? We must make options. Plastic use. I cannot even imagine why we would enter plastic use in when this is a major environmental concern. And then if it's not plastic, so I get to have a dirty glass that's cross-contaminating all the things I keep clean behind my bar and tell my bartenders to go ahead and take dirty glass constantly. How opting out does not make it so I'm not participating. So that means that the second they get into my door, I have to say either slam it or put it down. How does that put the people that are totally responsible in a good place? I'm trying to run a business and then come in and say, but I still have to be a private club taking full responsibility for your drinking. How can I control that if they're just coming and going? Education and forum afterwards, I don't think is very fair. I want the police, I want the ALE, I want the ABC to come and talk to me as somebody who is being that ABC permitter and held liable. If we set up the infrastructure, have trial runs during things like greening up the mountains when we had those streets set down, put all the infrastructure in place, and then don't hold me liable for things I can't control. I can control right now my business that I have set up, trained for, and done for 7 years. I have kept people very safe. And this makes it so I can't make people safe. That's it. Thank you.
McCardle.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I own Lulu's restaurant downtown. I've been a resident of Sylva for 9 years. My background includes 8 years as a California State Police officer and 7 years as a special events coordinator at UC Davis. I'm very familiar with festivities, concerts, etc., and the things that go on. Currently, we do have an ABC permit. We can sell every beverage. We also have an entrance on Main Street and an entrance on Back Street, which makes us a public restroom every time there is a large activity going on. It also puts my staff in a position to be the mask police, so to speak. You know, is your drink legal? Where did you get it, etc.? And I just don't want to be in that business. I also have a concern long-term about the restroom situation getting worse and worse and worse. The garbage, the trash, etc. Right now, my back door, every time there is a large activity, and I pretty much have to assign someone there, not only to police it, but to clean it on a continuous basis. Trash, garbage, etc., as everybody's already spoken about, is a major issue. And the other issue that I have is how, as everyone is, like, how do we enforce this? What is our position as a business person saying, you know, what are you doing? What is in your cup? What is in your glass, etc.? And I'm not saying I don't think it's something that we shouldn't consider. I just don't think we've done our homework. I also don't think that the facilities that we've looked at in other locations really compare to what goes on in Sylva. I noticed, and I don't know how many businesses or how many states or cities that were looked at, but I know that we're much, much, much smaller than all of those other areas, and 2 of them are not even in our state. I'm for a trial run perhaps or whatever, but the infrastructure currently doesn't exist. And right now, anytime we have something, we're overwhelmed. I can't imagine adding to that without looking at what the possibilities of mistakes are. So, thank you.
Mr. McCardle. Garrett Craig.
Hi. I came here to offer full support of the social district, but honestly, after hearing a lot of the public comments, I am not quite in the same boat that I started the night on. I do think that it would be a a really nice way to give people more options for spending time together, whether it's hanging out outside the bar with friends and family who don't drink, or being COVID safe, if that's a concern for people. I also think that this has been done in hundreds of communities nationwide. And I haven't heard any horror stories like I'm hearing suggested may happen tonight. So I think there is a little bit of like education that may help in this scenario, public education on what this actually might look like. But I do hear the concerns about the bathrooms, and I don't know when the new public bathroom we're supposed to be getting is actually going to happen. I know we want to have the social district in place for big events and festivals, and I think that would be great. I love hearing about the possibility of like a trial period, or maybe even having something that's just for festivals. And I guess I would add, I know I'm kind of scattered, but that's because I'm changing my entire point. Even in the original proposal, this district would close at 9. So I think some of the concerns with like people coming here to party or stumbling out of bars is maybe just a little bit overblown. That's all I have.
Thank you very much. Cameron Jones.
Are there not enough places to drink in Sylva that you have to be able to drink from one to the other? I mean, are you gonna die of thirst before you get to another building? It's all about safety and health, and y'all said that, I've heard that many times tonight. Well, let's talk about what alcohol leads to. It leads to family abuse. It leads to alcohol abuse. It leads to cirrhosis of the liver. Sure, it's a temporary high. You feel good for a little while, but it ain't gonna last. You want something that's lasting, right here, James. Amen. And if you need to talk about it, I'll be happy to talk to you. And I appreciate y'all's time. And one of the things is keep Sylva Sylva. And this is not my definition of Sylva. I've been here all my life. Thank y'all for your service. I'll be praying for y'all. I hope you pray for me.
Thank you, Mr. Jones.
Yes, ma'am.
Corey and Bryson. Are they? Okay. And Laura.
I'm up here because we were asked to represent the breweries in town to talk about this potential ordinance. When I first heard that it was passed by the state, honestly, I had mixed opinions about it. I really didn't see how it would be beneficial to our business. It would cost us money for pups, and we'd have to be extra vigilant with people coming in with things like that. But anybody that knows me knows that I don't just think about myself. I look at the bigger picture. We've heard a lot of doom and gloom stories tonight about kids running out in the street and getting hit by cars, or college students puking and urinating all over the streets. Honestly, we've got 10 or 11 licensed ABC businesses in town right now. If that were going to happen, it would already be a problem. What I see that this could bring to the town is we have family in on vacation. They come in, they have lunch, they have some drinks, but they want to go explore the town. They want to go look around. They want to walk down the street, go in some of the shops, but they want to finish their beer, or no, let's just have another beer and then we'll get on the road and go where we want to go. This would give them the ability to enjoy a walk down town, visit some of the shops. This is not turning downtown Sylva into Bourbon Street on Mardi Gras. This is about giving people the option to walk around, not be locked down to one location. I don't see it as a liability issue because all of our staff are trained as well to make sure that they don't overserve someone. That's our responsibility. What happens after that is on that person. Once they leave the premise, that's on them. But we will not serve someone if they've had too much at that point. I think that's about all I have for the moment, but I don't see it as a big benefit to our business. We may sell an extra beer to someone as they're leaving. Otherwise, I think it's a benefit to the town. And that's basically what I see it as. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bryson. Todd Bryson.
I'm totally against this. One thing, everybody's talked about everything that I wanted to talk about today, but one thing I want to ask y'all as board members and mayor, where does this district stop at? There's a Sylva First Baptist Church, there's a Methodist church. Where does this stop at? And, you know, I was reading that paper, Sylva Herald, good old Sylva Herald, you know, and I was reading that and it said Sunday, 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. Now, people are going to be going to Sunday school, children going to Sunday school. If y'all got anything about y'all, y'all would have a little bit of respect for the Christian people in this county.
Amen, that's right.
God have mercy on each one of y'all. And you can sit there and smile. But I'm gonna tell you something. It's ridiculous. And I mean, I can see the little smile, smirks under all y'all's masks. You got it in your minds what you want to do. But it's ridiculous. It really is. And who's gonna pay for it? Who's gonna pay for it? Who's gonna be held liable if something happens to somebody? Children. I worked for the funeral home. I was coming back from a funeral today, coming right up through town here. I don't know if the First Baptist Church has a daycare or something like that. But children playing in the yard out there. And I thought, man, they're gonna see people drinking alcohol, come right down the streets here. Let's drink alcohol. Let's promote them. Let's let them drink alcohol. Yeah. I mean, y'all have any comments on that? It's Sunday out of the question. You not have respect for Christian people? That's my question for y'all. Anybody have an answer?
This is just a public
I know this is
hearing,
public, but
and we don't,
y'all are public too.
but it's not for us.
Y'all are serving the fine citizens of Sylva and the fine citizens of the county.
It's your turn to talk. It's not
I
our turn to
understand that,
respond.
but I'm asking you a question. So I would greatly appreciate it if you would answer that question, maybe after my time is over, if you don't care. Thank you for y'all's time. I guess have a little bit of respect for Christian people. Think about Sundays. You know, 9 o'clock, somebody said, 9 o'clock, that's gonna be cut off. People go out and drink 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock up here at O'Malley's. 9 o'clock don't make one bit of difference, but have a little bit of respect for Christian people. And think about the 10 o'clock thing. I wish y'all would. Thank y'all.
Thank you, Mr. Bryson. Aaron Reckman. He's still here. I know he spoke earlier.
No, they say no out here.
Okay. Scott Burr.
All right, first off, I want to say thank you for holding this meeting. Appreciate it and giving me this opportunity to speak. I'm speaking as both a business owner and an employee who also serves people in this town. I own Jackson Tech Repair right here on Main Street. We fix phones, computers, things like that. We deal with electronics, a lot of sensitive data and equipment. Even though we're technically, we can opt out, people don't read signs. I mean, you can put a sign on your door that says, please wear a mask, and 95% of people just don't look at it. I mean, and that's not just, that's everywhere. I feel a lot of that liability falls back onto the business to argue with them, be like, no, you can't have open containers in here. You know, I've had people, you know, at times where we've tried to cut them off and I've been like, look, just please, just have a cup of water. I'm not trying to tell you to drink. And people smash their glasses and throw them on the walls. People just lose it. I'm also from Concord, North Carolina. I know Kannapolis is one of the main cities that, you know, people have talked about. I'm from there. I know what that area is like. The infrastructure here does not nearly compare to theirs. They've got public transportation for one, Uber, et cetera. You know, people have options to get home. That's not an option here. I know bathrooms have been mentioned, and a lot of the garbage and stuff comes into. Liability is also really, really important. You know, Georgia, Alabama have much lighter ABC laws than we do. You know, like I know somebody said earlier, you know, when they leave, that's their responsibility is on them. That's not the case in North Carolina. Liability still falls on us until you are home. If somebody is sitting there with a drink that's served from us, we could have served them one thing, but they go to Cullowhee and they kill somebody in an accident. Guess who's going to come knocking on our door and who's going to shut us down and do a full investigation because we are still liable. Even though they served themselves, you know, somewhere else, the fact that they had our cup and it's sitting in their center console, they're going to come after us. That's just the way North Carolina is. Unless those laws have been changed, I'm strongly against that because as somebody who serves people, I'm not going to be held responsible for somebody coming in, taking a to-go cup from me, going and drinking all over the place or refilling it in their car and then driving home, killing somebody, and then me being punished for it or me being investigated for it. I don't think that's right or fair. If in other states, it works. North Carolina has to either change those laws, the state legislature has to make things clear before I would support that from that end. But that's the biggest issue. Liability is a major facet in this whole thing. And even if businesses opt out, we're still being held responsible for maintaining and things like that. I don't want to have to call Sylva PD, you know, once or twice a week because I've got some unruly Floridian that's come in there, you know, in the middle of some tourists. Excuse me, but thank you.
Thank you very much. Baxley.
Obviously, I'm speaking on behalf of us as owners of Baxley Chocolates in downtown and in the district. And Lauren, on our behalf, did email all of you a list of our concerns, and we really appreciate the response we got back from some of you to what we had written. And one of our purposes tonight is just to say that, you know, we've considered those and still feel like that the concerns we have haven't really been addressed as we think they should be. And I won't go into a lot of detail since you've already heard those from Lauren, but you know, we still believe that this is a burden on businesses that opt out, that it is not good for our relationship with our customers, that there are environmental concerns that are important to us. That there were talks about, well, one remedy is to go with disposables or recyclable containers. The problem is it's already been talked about. There's no real infrastructure to make sure those get out of the waste stream and actually are recycled. You know, the restroom issue is one that we still believe is very important. The boundaries of the district don't include public restrooms at all, and that's already a pressure on all the businesses downtown. I guess there were some specific responses that we heard back that one was how this would be such a good impact for us because of the positive impact it would have on tourism. And I would just want to point out that as our business and tourism is very important to us, and we've certainly seen an increase in that over the time that we've been open in downtown. But a significant part of that group of people that come into our shop talk about how excited they are to find a place like Sylva that is not like places that they have been going to, that they're trying to find other options that, and one of the issues they bring up is somewhere where they see that, you know, alcohol abuse is not an issue or problems with that in public areas. So we feel like really this is going to be a detriment to tourism in downtown rather than a help. I mean, we've also heard that this is all about Bridge Park. I mean, if it's really all about Bridge Park, then why not make Bridge Park the social district and not include all of downtown Sylva? But the biggest issue to us all along has been that we see that the cup that you get when you buy a drink is kind of your golden ticket to abuse. And that's been mentioned by everybody. And we think our town is bigger than that. I think the thing that we love about this community is the fact that it is one that cares about each other and cares about our visitors. And we don't think this does that.
Thank you. Lindsay McGregor.
She'll pass, she's left.
That is all of the people that I have that said they wish to speak on this. Is there anyone I missed?
I would like to speak.
Okay, and your name is?
Catherine Howell, or Catherine Barnes.
Did you sign up?
I did, but I did not check that I wanted to speak.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Go ahead.
I've listened to all this tonight, and the concerns that I've heard are mostly no bathrooms, garbage, that sort of thing. My biggest concern is the safety. I think each one of you and the position that you're in charge with in securing and ensuring the safety of the residents in this area. My husband was Melvin Barnes in 2016, November the 30th, 2016. We were headed home from church down 107. We were hit head on by a drunk who was overserved at Tuck's there at the college. My husband was killed. I was seriously injured and now handicapped because of that injury. You know, the dram shop laws of the state of North Carolina are very specific. You know, when you go into a bar or when someone is hired to serve in a bar, they have to go through training. You know, they have to keep track of how many drinks have been served in a certain period of time, how this person is acting, whether they're staggering or whether all of these things are put in place to keep people from being overserved and going out and getting into a vehicle. If you have this open policy downtown or wherever it is, how is that going to work? And just like Mr. Large said, you know, people don't always do what they're supposed to do. You know, so you're going to end up with college students. I was young once, you know, most of us didn't do what we were supposed to do. But you're going to end up with all of these college students coming downtown to take part of this, and you know, nobody is really overseeing. Okay, you get a drink with a cup with a sticker on it. You know, as well as I do, that you can get around that. And once that cup is empty, you've got a little one in your pocketbook and you fill it back up. So you have no oversight to how much these people are actually drinking. At some point, they're going to get cut off, and then they're going to get in their cars and go back to the college. And don't think that what happened to us can't happen to you or your family or your loved ones. Please don't do this. Sylva is a wonderful place to live. My husband lived here all his life. Please don't do this. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Did I miss anyone?
I'll just say that people relieving their liquids on Main Street is an issue. You're saying that it isn't. I constantly see it and have plenty of film if you'd like to.
Thank you for your comments.
Yeah.
Now, I want to ask the town manager a question. Should we have discussion now or go back to our regular agenda and discuss under new business?
I would go back to the regular agenda and discuss them.
Have a few agenda items that we skipped because of our presenters that had to leave. So we'll go back and do that. There's not much business before we get to the new business. So
We need a motion to close the hearing.
yes. Do I have a motion to close this hearing?
Motion to close the public hearing.
All right. Any discussion? Those in favor signify by saying aye and raise your hand. Thank you. Motion is approved. Okay, we will go back to our approval of the consent agenda. That was in your packet. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
That motion?
All right, thank you. And is there any discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye and raise your hand. That motion is approved. Next is public comment on anything that is not on our agenda. Is there anyone here that wished to make public comment other? Yes, sir.
The property that is 50 Railroad Avenue, I believe would be the best place for a skate park in Sylva.
50 Railroad Avenue.
So our gravel parking lot on the right, it's triple divided, and the last little sector is 50, the other two are considered 48. And that last corner, you've got about 150 feet by 50 feet. That would be a great spot for a skate park, I think, in the center, pump track around that, and then the little greenway around that. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Anyone else with anything not on our agenda? Right, then we will go to reports. Mayor's report. The only thing that I would like to report is that we finally received some money that we had been trying to get from the state. So all of those have been approved, and that's all I have to say. Mary. Commissioner.
No report tonight. Thank you.
David.
Real quick. So I know we've been very busy. Staff has been very busy. Can we still schedule that housing meeting sometime soon? We can work with dates outside the meeting, but I just wanted to bring that up. I know you were at the manager's conference right after we had that discussion. But that's it.
Ben.
I just wanted to say, I think folks have been able to get a good look into seeing what happens here. It is a small town government, but a lot of people do a lot of work, and especially with this, the rewrites, the town staff has really done a ton of work, and I just want to thank everybody for everything they've done. And I want folks to know that town government is it's a lot of work, and the people that are doing it are dedicated to make it Sylva a better place.
Thank you. Great.
I just wanted to say to everybody that was here tonight, thank you very much for coming and participating in this discussion. It's been lively, and I really appreciate you all taking the time to come down here and participate in your government. I just want to say that I'm super proud to work with the staff. I'm super proud to work with Withers Ravenel, the people that we've hired to rewrite our ordinances. This is something that came down from the state. It's mandated to us. If it was up to me, we would have just left everything like it was, but we had to do it. So I just want to say how grateful I am to be able to serve all of you. That's it.
Love y'all.
Natalie.
I have nothing to report.
Thank you. We'll move on to the manager's report.
Thank you. So the essentials class, once it's finalized, I'll let you know, but the school of government is looking at March the 24th and 25th, which conflicts with our final or our last meeting of the month in March. So if that works out, I would like the board to consider moving our budget work session and the 9 a.m. meeting on the 24th to 3 o'clock on the 31st. I'll let you know as soon as the school government confirms that. And we got word that we received the $750,000 contingency funds for Allen Street from DOT. So thank you for working on that, Mayor Sossman, and for following up with our state representatives and senators. I don't have anything in writing yet, but that will let us get moving on Allen Street's repair quicker. The fire department, we've been working with Mike and Mallory on their proposed budget when they asked for a split department between volunteer and paid staff. So the county has asked Mike, the mayor, and I to come to their budget work session March the 10th to present this request to the county commissioners. I'm reaching out to other managers that have transitioned to this split volunteer department to find out the hurdles and costs that they incurred when they went through this change. And there is a lot to look into with this, but it's an opportunity worth considering. As far as the salary study goes, employees have completed their salary study questionnaires for the MAPS group. Becky Veazey will be here meeting with employees February 28th and March the 1st to speak with staff, and she'll present her findings to the board at a budget work session later this spring. Any questions? Yes.
So is Allen Street fully, is that all the funds we need?
So we still don't have the funds. And we don't have the state capital infrastructure funds, but we're getting through the grant paperwork with it. So it's coming soon.
Any other questions of Paige? Then we will move on to new business. Agenda item number 1 is ordinance amendment, chapter 4, alcoholic beverages. And Paige, would you share with us the
Yes, so this
amendment?
This ordinance amends chapter 4, which is our regulations and our code of ordinance on alcoholic beverages, and adds the social district.
Do I hear any comments from the board, or do I hear a motion? Anyone?
I feel like I'm you tonight, David. I've got a lot of notes, so I apologize, but I don't apologize. I think tonight we heard a lot about chickens, and I'm glad for that because that really just opened my mind to this coexist joy component. We need to be able to coexist with one another. And what's on the table tonight and what we're proposing is not a coexist proposal. One of my arguments in the beginning was the nature of Concerts on the Creek. Concerts on the Creek was created by a grant by the people of this community, not with alcohol at them. That's not to say it's not fun to have a beer at a concert. I wholeheartedly agree. I go to those concerts too. But there's a time and a place for everything under God. And this is not the time, and this is not the place to bring in an ordinance like this to the community of Sylva. I understand that in 2022, the calendar is already set in place of the bands. When I pulled this, I really thought that Mountain Faith Band would be on there. They always play. I don't know why they couldn't. They're pretty amazing. They may have already filled their calendar. But I did notice a couple of bands that I thought might have a problem with alcohol at their events. Now, this is already set in stone. Contracts have already gone into place. So should this pass, are these concerts going to be, is anybody going to go to them and make sure that they're okay with the new conditions? They may be, they may not be. Additionally, this is a family-friendly event. I think you can have alcohol and you can have family, and I think that there is a time and a place. But we're imposing this new idea on this time and place that is not already planned for that. So we're pulling in an image and an idea on people that may not want that. that creates a parallel universe, just like our masks do, just like a lot of things do that are happening in society right now. Do we really want to go there? Now, my parents are a brick and mortar business. In fact, I think they may be the second or first oldest, 1971. I'm not coming here as a representative of my parents' business, but I did speak to other brick and mortar businesses, one sitting in the back, Baxley's Chocolate Factory, Jackson's General, which you would have to pass on their property to walk with your beer. Pass. Hollowfield Jewelers is another one. Banks, post offices, legal offices. They don't want to police this.
Yeah.
They all enjoy a beer too. I know that they do, but they don't want to be the police that have to back this. We already don't have an officer for Main Street. We can't hire an officer to stay on. Our staff has not been full in, I don't know, a year or more. Are we really ready for the ramifications of that? We talk about composting, we talk about plastic cups versus a paper cup. Either way, that's litter. You use a plastic cup, you keep it in your car, you pull out your PBR, fill it up later. I'd say I'd do it. I think other people might do it too. So just because you're having the beer served with a sticker at the bar does not mean that this is going to police itself. The businesses that don't want it are going to have to police it, and then they're going to resent you. Is that what we really want, a community like that? I'm aware that there's a merchants association in the state of North Carolina, even nationally, that has accepted this. Michigan is into it, Annapolis is into it. I'm sure their footprint of their Ubers, their taxis, their transit system looks a lot different. Do we really want all of those Western students coming to town to have beers? I own a tourism business. Tourism is all that supports my rafting business. I love rafters. I love tourists. I send them to your breweries to have beers after they raft. I don't allow them on the river. You cannot take alcohol on my rafting trip. I don't want that liability. That's on you because that's what you know. I imagine there's some ethics that have to do with being a bartender. I imagine that you can kind of do like a sociology project and notice their mannerisms, how they're treating people, how they're getting a little bit more comfortable with the pacifier that they have, right? How do you manage that when you're not seeing them after they walk out of your establishment? It's not okay to push this on everyone that doesn't want it. So then I thought, well, what about if we just do this for special events, right? I mean, that makes sense. Belshare did it for 35 years. But for anyone that's been to Belshare, it stopped. It stopped in 2013. Why did it stop? The majority of the brick and mortar businesses, they didn't like it. They went on vacation to the beach. You guys can Google search this all you like. They left their brick and mortar businesses. They were sick of the vandalism. They were sick of the stealing. They were sick of the trash coming in to use their restrooms. They don't want this. I'm curious if any businesses have come to you all and said that they want this, because I haven't heard any of them. I will pause. Your turn.
Next. So, I mean, we had a very similar debate to this when we voted to allow alcohol consumption on town property. And we heard the same exact arguments that we heard when we debated having alcohol in the beer gardens and cleaning up the mountains. The parks won't be safe, drunks on the sidewalk, safety issues, that there's gonna be more, marauding gangs of drunk people around town. And by and large, I think we're way over suspicious of people's intentions in Sylva. It is a community-oriented town center. People are good and they're responsible, and I don't think this changes that. And those problems did not surface when we allowed alcohol at those events. People were very responsible. And we did it slowly and we were careful about it, and it was well thought out and it was well planned. When the county debated whether to go wet, you can look at Sylva Herald articles and letters to the editor. It was the same comments. Again, those problems just did not materialize. I think this is a quality of life issue for people in Sylva. I like to have a beer, literally a beer downtown, and walk around and enjoy being outside and not being in a crowded bar. I'm not going to be slamming my beer down in places that won't let me come in there. I think you see a sign at the door and if you want to go in there later, you wait till you finish your drink. I think by and large, people are good and we can trust them to be that way. And if an issue comes up and this becomes a problem, we can adapt and we can change that ordinance. And people talk about a dry run. Well, I mean, we've had a dry run with allowing alcohol then slowly over the years, and they worked out fine. I think passing this ordinance can give us a dry run. If it doesn't work, we can change it. I like the attention that the disposable cups are getting. I don't foresee a lot of people really taking advantage of this social district. I don't think it's going to create this wild bar hopping scene. It stops at 9 o'clock. I don't see Western people utilizing it very much. I see a few families utilizing it. It's odd to me to hear, from businesses that everything they sell goes out the door in something disposable, complain about the problems. Now they have an issue with a couple of drinks that might get, sold a day from a place. Again, I agree. That is the biggest issue with this. I don't like that either. It does generate waste, but where was that debate when we were doing disposable cups for all sorts of other drinks and foods? So I don't really think this is going to add that much to that issue. No public transportation. Again, I agree. That is a huge issue, but you're not increasing the amount of alcohol consumption downtown. You still can't be drunk when you get served your drink. I mean, we're not changing that. That's still not okay. Again, I just don't think this is going to be creating more problems with alcohol. The public restroom, agree. We have gotten our funding for a public restroom downtown. That is in the plans. I would rather it already be there too. But allowing someone to take a drink to go, the connection from that to them urinating on the sidewalk is quite a leap. Yeah, I don't think we're going to be overwhelmed with trouble people on this. That's it.
Thank you, David.
Yeah. So, I kind of echo the, I don't think this is going to be able to set floodgates open for much more drinking. And there's a tendency to go to the worst case scenario. But with that said, I don't feel that, I still don't see the big win for this, or the big gain. And the logistics, I've been back and forth with this logistics versus gain issue. And I do hear, and of course, do not want to have local businesses having to do, we've been through this mask business. We don't want to do now one more thing to policing. I'm all about that too. But I am in favor of the concept of just being able to walk around town with beer. And I don't think it's going to cause people getting run over. I'm much more in favor about making the crossing safer and, restrict, more signage and that kind of thing. I have been since I've been on the town board, but I as is written today here, I feel that it's not quite what it needs to be. I think there needs to be more discussion, whether it's a trial run, but to hear more from folks, and to reach out to people too, local businesses, and say, okay, are there misunderstandings? Is this really going to happen? Are there some tweaks we can do it? So I'm still at that point where, as written today, I don't think I really support it. But the idea of a social district still seems to make sense to me. But I just don't feel like we're there logistically yet. And 100%, like this cup garbage thing, I'm still not settled how we can work that out. I think there are some ways to work through these things, but as it's written today, it doesn't seem to really all add up to me.
Thank you. Great.
So we have heard from law enforcement, and they do not foresee any issues like the ones that we've heard tonight. So I'm going to trust that opinion. I agree with David. These are definitely the things that we heard before this board, before alcohol was downtown. Bringing that downtown was a boom to downtown, was a boom to our businesses, was a boom to the economy of this town. So one thing that we're concerned with is the lack of amenities in Sylva. There isn't a skate park, there isn't an arcade, there isn't anything. This would be a very small amenity for residents to be able to come downtown and enjoy the outdoors with whatever beverage they choose. And I trust that, I know you have drunk people, and I see those drunk people every night too. That problem that is separate from this problem, this ends at 9 o'clock.
Yeah, liquor and beer consuming is a little different.
It is, and I would suggest that maybe we have some smaller cups. Like instead of a 16-ounce cup, maybe we have 2 versions of the cup. I don't know, but my other point was, I was thinking that, like, since this is a social district and we're talking about being outside and congregating together, that as part of this, we bring back some of that outdoor COVID seating in front of Folsom Falls in particular. Somebody else would like to do that. I don't know. That would be for the weekends, pull it out, we have the weekend, Monday morning it's gone, something like that. That's just a suggestion. I also heard from the church, what time does the brunch start?
Yeah.
And that would be the same time as we're proposing. I think maybe we would turn that into maybe 1. You can have your drink in the restaurant, outdoors, maybe that starts at 1. That's all.
This one? And I hit the right one. No, she needs to use the single line. Use this one. Okay. Okay, there we go. Sorry, guys. So I don't have a lot to say, I guess. I know Greg just mentioned about the hours on Sunday, and I know that someone spoke on that tonight as well. So I think it's important that we look at that. And I do want to say that I've heard a lot of concerns, and I think that a lot of those concerns are very valid. And I've had several conversations about this. I think it's important that we address those concerns, but I do think there are solutions for a lot of those concerns. And some of the concerns that are brought up, again, are not strictly related to like the social district. These are just concerns that we should probably be addressing anyway. And I know that public restrooms are on the to-do list, and having a downtown police officer, that sort of thing. I think there's a lot of great things to be said about the social district. I believe I'm probably the youngest person on the board at this time. I'm 4 months sober. So I don't have any plans to really participate at this time in the social district, but as someone who has been in places who already have this in place, during the daytime, drinking and walking about, I've never been in a place that's had a social district where people are just rowdy and crazy and going like peeing in the streets and things like that in those places. And I think with the hours that we've talked about, that I don't think we'll see those kinds of issues here in Sylva. I think when we're talking about neighborly and being community and everyone being close and tight knit, I think we have to put trust in our neighbors that they'll do the right thing. And like I said, some of those issues that we've mentioned, those things already happen, and people are already drinking. Like people are already drinking, the bars already exist, the breweries already exist, people are already drinking. And so the other thing I wanted to say, and I've talked to someone about this too, is that not having a social district doesn't bar those things from happening. I've lived in Columbia, South Carolina before. You're not allowed to drink in the street and people are still rowdy. I have enough trust in the citizens in Sylva that they will respect this. And it's a privilege. The social district will be a privilege. So if people don't respect it, then it can be easily taken away. I think that we can work with any concerns and problems that may arise.
Any other comments, Mary, did you?
Yeah, I do want to circle back. I think the intention of this is innocent. I think that in theory, if everything was just perfect in the world, yes, this could function well. Unfortunately, I'm sorry, we're all sinners, we all screw up, we all make mistakes, and I don't have that much trust. I just don't. The businesses that exist right now and favorable to, who's to say what businesses will be invited in and come in because of this initiative? I'm sure you saw it in the paper where some fairly large businesses in the B1 district have just been sold. Are you aware of what they're going to do with those buildings? maybe that's something to take into consideration. I don't know. If this was a conditional use permit and if we were sitting as Board of Adjustments, I just want to close by reminding us of a quasi judicial hearing and how there's 4 tenets that must take place in order for a conditional use permit to pass. Number 1, the use will not materially endanger the public health or safety if located in the proposed developed area, according to the plan submitted. Number 2, the use meets all the required conditions and specifications. Number 3, the use will not substantially injure the value of the adjoining or abutting properties, and the alternative use is not public necessity. Number 4, the location and character of the proposed use will be in harmony with the area in which it is located, in general conformity with the development of the town and its environment. If we were to vote on this as a Board of Adjustment, this would not pass. I want to bring that to your attention tonight.
Any other discussion or comments from the board?
Is there a way to get clarification as to what they've changed liabilities to on the people who have served? Because like it said, we go through a class where, you know, basically, once we've served you, we're responsible. And, you know, so with the social thing, there's so much more opportunity where people can do other different things. I know y'all spoke with law enforcement and things like that. Have they changed the laws to where we will not be held liable in that sort of setting?
Eric, you on this?
I'm listening.
Okay.
That's my big question. It's just because at that point it becomes a legal liability for the businesses that serve, at least in North Carolina. Other states, their ABC laws are much more lenient or very different. In North Carolina, the ALE could come in if somebody went and caused an accident and had our cup in it and go, ALE could come shut us down for however long they deign to do their investigation.
All right, well, so I guess, I mean, I completely disagree with that legal analysis. I don't, to answer your first question, to my knowledge, I haven't changed the liability laws. You would still have to be proven that you did it. So if someone is going out and filling up their cup out in their car, I would think that, I mean, they're gonna have to prove that isn't what happened. So it's still gonna be on the plaintiff's responsibility to prove that that is not what happened, that you in fact were the person that was over serving that person. So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's my general.
Yeah, my big question was that they wouldn't be able to just come in and be like, well, your cup was in the car, so we're shutting you down and investigating.
Yeah, I don't know any law about that.
Well, that's because it's new legislation. It's brand new.
That's what I'm saying.
No, I mean, and the only piece of evidence that would be in that would be the person being served at the ABC permittee's establishment. You would have a video of them being served at the establishment. And so then you'd be in a position of proving a negative that they didn't go out to their car and, you know.
If I could comment to that, we're spinning our wheels here, really. Whether they have a cup from your establishment or whether they have a receipt from your establishment, you still serve them. It is your responsibility as an ABC permit holder to make sure when you serve them that they are legal to be served. What they do beyond that is always going to be on them. Yes, the ALA may come to you and say, hey, what's going on here? This person ended up drunk. They've come to us before. We pulled the tapes, we showed the receipt. This person had 2 drinks and then they left. And they were drunk 3 hours later. That's on us. That's our responsibility as an ABC licensee, is to have that documentation. It doesn't matter whether it's in a social district or in everyday reality of running the business. We still have the same responsibilities.
Then why did the legislature put into that piece of legislation that there has to be a sticker from the ABC permittee? In every other state where you have some kind of social district, then you serve them in a cup.
Excuse me, this isn't a place for us to argue those legal things. All of those things must already be in place. Otherwise, other cities and other places that have this social district would do it. That's not for us to decide now. I think what the board has to decide, they would have several issues. They can just say, I want to approve, we want to approve this, or we want to approve it with stipulations, or we want a trial period, or we don't want it now. So, and we don't, it's not a time for us to take comments, I don't believe. Is there something quick you want to say?
Yeah, very simple. The entire board up here and all of this has never addressed my issue of who's paying for it, where's the money coming from, to establish it and then maintain it.
I was just about to say that.
Please, tell me where it's coming from.
Can you help us out with that?
Well, there's not a whole lot of expense to it other than the signage that
We
we're
have
requiring.
14 signs up there, they're double sided.
Well, we cannot put those double sided signs on.
You're gonna have garbage pickup, and that's gonna be.
Excuse me, Mr. Jones, I asked.
So on a state highway, you can't, we'd have to put the decal signs, which are a lot less expensive. To my knowledge, we have something like 32 trash receptacles or 35 when I counted.
Where's the money coming from?
Downtown.
I don't remember the number, but good job.
Yeah,
When
well, I
you're
counted them.
subsidizing individual businesses.
Between Main and Mill, 32.
32.
Can you advise us, Paige, or do we have options that we should do, or just?
Okay, so as far as approving it, you can approve it, you can make amendments to suggest to this, you can deny it.
Can they table it?
Table it?
You can table it, but you need to give a date that you would table it to.
Why do we want to table it?
No, this question.
Those are options.
Those are options,
Okay.
yeah.
2040.
Yes.
I would like to amend it to say, Monday through Saturday, 10 to 9. Oh, I'm sorry, Monday through Saturday, 8 to 9. And Sunday, 1 to 9.
Make a motion that we adopt the ordinance amendment, chapter 4, alcoholic beverage with the amendment. That's right.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there any further discussion?
And there can be additional amendments. You said you wanted some changes, or it wasn't right for.
I'm not in a position to kind of like, there's a bunch of stuff that I'm not. I don't know. There's too many questions right now that I can't like make amendments to just to go with, so.
And Paige or Bernadette, if you can tell us if this ordinance is passed, we have ways to repeal it or modify it.
Yes. You can make more amendments to this.
Any other discussion? Then I will ask for a vote. All those in favor of the amendment to chapter 4 of the Town of Sylva Ordinance Code, raise your hand and say yes.
Yes.
Okay. All of those that are opposed to this, say no.
No.
Okay, the motion passes 3-2 to amend that with the changes suggested. Thank you, everybody. We had a long meeting, but we have one more item on our agenda. It's the resolution to surplus property, which is the K-9. Paige, would you?
So our K-9 Able, this officer is no longer employed with the county. He's gone to the sheriff's department. And the sheriff's department has offered to purchase Able from the town to keep the officer and the dog together. You don't have another officer that would take that dog right now without having to be trained. We've also just gotten a grant for another canine that, once that dog's purchased, that dog and an additional officer will need to go to training. So $6,000 was offered from the sheriff's department, and Chief Hatton said that that's enough to cover the cost of a dog and training.
Okay, so it's just an even swap, basically, right? So it's not gonna
Yes.
cost anything, and then the dog goes to Zach.
Right.
Okay. Well, is there, oh, sorry, yeah, so that,
That's okay. Do I hear a motion?
a discussion, right? We have discussed.
We have a motion and then discuss.
Okay.
I'll make a motion that we pass a resolution authorizing the disposition of town property, which is.
We'll do.
Thank you. We have a motion, and now is there any discussion? No discussion?
Just
Then
an observation, you know, we haven't had Able the K9 very long, and we're losing a great staff member, and I just want to make awareness to that it's concerning to me that we're not able to keep our staff. Good leadership has good followers, and I think we need to try to understand why we keep losing staff. A canine training, a canine dog is a big deal. I remember when Chief Woodard came to us wanting this, and I'm just disappointed this is a very short time for Able in the Civil Police Department. That's all.
thank you. Thank you. Any other discussion or comments? Then all those in favor of adopting this resolution signify by raising your hand and saying aye.
Aye.
There are none opposed, so that resolution is approved. Thank you, and thanks to everyone that came to our meeting. And now it is time for us to adjourn, and I would entertain a motion for that.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, we have a motion. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand and saying aye.
Aye.
None opposed. We are adjourned.
Thank you, sir.
What do you think about it?